Welcome everybody, families and friends and fellow students. This is the most exciting day of the year at Design for Social Innovation, and it's the day when everybody works maniacally for months to make it look like it's really easy when they come up here. I'm Cheryl Heller, and I'm the chair of the program. And I wanted to talk a little bit, first of all, about not only how wonderful the students are, but all the people who have contributed to what you're going to see today. All of the faculty have been devoted to helping the students get to the point of graduation, especially the thesis faculty, who you'll be hearing from. Archie Lee Coates IV, and Jeffrey Franklin, Mia Osaki, and Mari Nakano. You'll be hearing from each of them as they talk about the students. Social design is the design process disaggregated from the products and services that it typically produces. And it's applied at a systems level to solving societal issues like climate change and social and economic inequity, health inequity, and broken food systems, all the things you're going to see today. And unlike traditional forms of design, social design isn't looking for that one killer product or service or that one-time solution that's going to fix something forever, because there aren't any silver bullets in solving the wicked problems that we face. Social design aims to build the capacity within the people that and the communities that designers work with for increased agency and resourcefulness and all of the conditions that allow people to address broken systems in an ongoing way over time. Our goal for the students at DSI is the same thing. We want to build in them the capacity to continually innovate and lead change, like social design itself. So the graduates that you're going to hear from have mastered a process that they're going to use for the rest of their lives to address whatever broken systems they choose to address, wherever they're working. And this thesis show is just one manifestation of that process. Every year, this is a really bittersweet moment for me because it's difficult saying goodbye to students that I have come to love and sending them off into the world. But it's also a bittersweet moment because this is the last thesis show for me. And so I will be, I'll probably be emotional during this, during the show. I think about when the students showed up on the first day, and I remember all of you when you came in, a little bit dazed and tentative, not knowing what this was going to be about. And then leaving with the wherewithal to act on the desire you came from in whatever way you choose. You came as individuals who didn't know each other. And what happens is you became a cohort that loves each other and supports each other. And that will never forget this time of being together and learning together. And we're grateful to have been a part of that. So, Danielle Hernandez, your kindness and your generosity and your nurturing nature were like an emotional home plate for the cohort. Wenqi, I will miss your superpower, your smile and your brilliant, sweet disposition. Nick, your indefatigable empathy for another species has been infectious. And it's been doggone fun to watch you accomplish what you did. Kubo and Yuwen, against all odds and across great distances, you succeeded in your commitment to help prevent HIV/AIDS in China. Zach, you've been Sharon and Karen about us since the day you came, making us laugh and making us love you. And I don't know who will bring this group to order when you graduate. Mary Beth and Corinne and Danielle, I think of you as Botticelli's three graces, but with modern superpowers to fix our damaged democracy. Umila, your very being is a force for gentleness and peace. So it's not surprising that you're fighting against domestic violence. Jay, you've put the talent of your hands and your heart to full use in helping ancient embroidery art and artisans survive. Rutvi, your own rigorous, independent thinking and problem-solving talent will help dependent spouses overcome inequity. Lu, your spirit and personality are larger than life and strong enough to help other people find purpose through their darkest hours. Jason, from the day you walked in, you've been committed to changing the rules of gaming and making it less toxic, and your quiet intelligence and perseverance prevailed. Rachel, you stuck to your guns on self-care for mothers of children with illness and brought it all together in the end. Pratiksha, you discovered and acted upon a shocking lack of education for sustainability and fashion that I know is going to make a difference. Kat and Taylor, you two just quietly went about doing extraordinary things from the moment you arrived at DSI. You are profoundly competent and committed. Jelynne and Zoe, your commitment to protect the real neighborhoods of New Jersey led you around many blocks, but you finally found the map. And Jessica, your tenacity and talent for craft, as well as social design, produced not one but two major projects this past year that you should be really proud of. I do love you all, and I'm enormously proud of you. And I'm going to leave the stage to Jeffrey Franklin now, who is always understated but surprising.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I hope it's okay that I brought one of my idols along to help celebrate today and to interpret, sorry, not to interrupt, but interpret whatever I'm trying to say with eventually some beautiful music. But first, I want to thank Cheryl and the rest of the Core 4. It's been another amazing and educational year, to say the least. And a massive thank you to my amazing group of students, Danielle, Wenqi, Nick, Yuwen, Kubo, and Zach. The projects you'll see today go beyond what we may typically think that a thesis project can actually do. They dug deep into difficult problems and pushed beyond simple theory. They got their hands dirty into some real and impactful action. And cue the music.
Congratulations, everyone. How you feeling today? Are you guys ready to have a little fun? Good. We can't all be about books, right? A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation and satisfaction in me. A little more fun, a little less fun, a little less fight, a little more smart. Sex around, open up your heart, a little satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. It's like looking at Justin Bieber for the first time, right? Take to the summer breeze. Here's the groove night, I can see that. Hey, you can put that up a little bit back there. A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more fun, a little less fun, a little less fight, a little more small. Change around, open up your heart, and never satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. Come on, baby, I'm tired of talking. Grab your coat and let's start walking in. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. From the president over to the little girls, can we just see where we're at? A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more fun, a little less fun, a little less fight, a little more smart. Shake your bottle, open up your heart, baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. I want to congratulate all of you. Give yourselves a nice round of applause. Come on.
Yeah.
You guys just put it up a little bit everything. There you go. Before we continue on, my name is Lamar Peters, not Elvis Presley. And I want to really congratulate all of you. You all look like a wonderful bunch of people. And oh, there you go. Hi, how you doing? All right. just want you to know that this next song that I'm about to sing, really, there is no joke about it. You guys achieve greatness in your life, and you're going to achieve even more. And the real reason why you're here is to see my show. No, ladies and gentlemen, I dedicate this song to you, and whatever you do in your life, may God bless you, and whatever you believe in is one love for all. This is called If I Can Dream. Maestro. There you go. There's two. There must be lights burning brighter somewhere. Got to be birds flying higher in the sky, more blue. If I can dream of a better land where all my brothers walk hand in hand, tell me why, oh why, oh why can't my dreams come true? Oh why? There must be peace and understanding sometimes. Strong winds of promise that will blow away all the doubt and fear. If I can dream of a warmer sun where hope keeps shining on everyone, tell me why, oh why, oh why won't that sun appear? We're lost in a cloud with too much rain. We're trapped in a world that's troubled with pain. But as long as a man has the strength to dream, he can redeem his soul and blood. Deep in my heart, there's a trembling question. Still I am sure that the answer's gonna come somehow out there in the dark. There's a burning candle, oh yeah. And while I can think, while I can talk, while I can stand, while I can walk, while I can dream, please let your dreams come true. Oh, right now. Congratulations, Sharon. Thank you. Right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you for you.
So I think nothing takes the edge off like the king. Am I right about that? But I just want to end by saying you should all be so proud of what you accomplished this year. I know that I am. Multiracial families, visually impaired kids, shelter dogs, gay college students in China, and parents of transgender kids were positively impacted by all of your hard work. Please keep asking questions, not to me anymore, please, but just of the world. And please keep working through your problems. And like he said, please keep dreaming, because your dreams are what's going to make this a better place. I can promise that. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello? Perfect. All right, I was feeling pretty good, but now I have to follow the king, so I've got that going for me. All right. Awesome. Today I'm here to talk with you all today about my thesis project for DSI. It's called Identity Explorers. But before I get started, I really want to introduce myself. I'm Danielle Hernandez. When people hear my last name Hernandez, I'm not often what they expect me to look like. I know this from personal experience. For instance, when I applied for my first job at a fast food restaurant in my hometown, I sent an email, it had my signature in it, had the same resume, and I didn't get the job. And the next day I went in person with one of my friends, and once they saw what I looked like, I got the job on the spot. I didn't know how to talk about experiences like that growing up until I went to college and was around other multiracial people for the first time in my life. And to be honest, they shared a lot of stories like mine, and a lot of them were a lot worse, especially if they moved through the world looking a lot differently than I did. Because of their stories, I was inspired to use my DSI Thesis project to use design to support equity and diversity. Today we'll be talking about exploring identity, and for me, my identity is many things. It's being from the Midwest, and it's being multiracial. Multiracial, or two or more races, is the fastest growing demographic in the United States. Research has shown that children as young as 7 years old are able to detect racial and ethnic discrimination aimed at them. This statistic is particularly alarming for those who are multiracial because, by definition, they identify as belonging to more than one group, but in many instances feel like they don't fit in anywhere. In a recent study, children who reported frequent experiences with discrimination were at a higher risk of depression, anxiety, oppositional behavior, and other mental health problems, but only among the children with less developed understandings of their racial identities. So after reading those studies, I wanted to talk to different multiracial families and really get an idea of what racial identity was to them, and also how that understanding really started. And in speaking with so many families, they stated that it started at home, and it started with what sort of values and views their parents passed on to them. And speaking with these families, many white parents expressed that they didn't feel confident in speaking with their children about race because racism wasn't something that they had experienced personally. And many parents of color expressed that they felt like the entire weight of that instilling that understanding was on their shoulders. And they also recognized that depending on how their children looked, their experiences could be very different. So really in talking to these families, it became evident to me that it wasn't so much a conversation of why, but how to instill that understanding in children when they had never experienced being multiracial themselves. One particularly poignant quote was from one parent was, "I want my kids to feel like they can come to me and talk to me about anything, especially things that make them feel uncomfortable. That's my job as a parent." And in speaking with other young multiracial adults, they assumed that their parents didn't want to talk about race because it was something that they had never brought up with them. So they never told their parents about things that happened to them while they were growing up, and they've just now started to understand what it means to be multiracial as adults. So it became clear to me that they're all trying to learn and navigate what being multiracial means. And for my project, I wanted to look at how design could support instilling that understanding. So how might we all go on this journey of exploring identity together? How can design help families in exploring and creating that space for children to explore the identity with them? So I conducted several co-creation sessions with families all over New York City, and what we talked about were challenges that they were currently experiencing or those that they anticipated experiencing in the future. And we also talked about things that they felt confident and were already doing with their children. And things that came up were using books and children's books to really break down more complex issues into things that their children could understand. We also talked about play as a way of bonding with their children and something that they already enjoyed doing, and also creating as a way of expressing themselves. So I asked myself for this project how we could use those comfortable tools of books, play, and creating to support those conversations. And I wanted to share this quote from one of the families who participated. The father said that, "I like working on creative projects with my children. Whether it's a project for school or one that I come up with, stimulating my kids' creativity is always fun for me." So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my project. It's called Identity Explorers. And just to give you a bird's eye view before I go into more details, it's a system that addresses the need for experience, resources, and a supportive community for all guardians to take action in instilling a better understanding of identity in their multiracial children. It starts small on a more personal level within the family with these things called field guides, which have different activities in them to build experience within the family unit of talking about race. And from there, families can upload those field guides to a thing called a repository on identityexplorers.com, and they can also see what other families have uploaded and how they're all talking about race. So it's really providing resources for those families. And going even deeper, they can share these field guides with their friends and family members, and they can also meet up in person to create these field guides at events at different cultural institutions. So it's providing that need for community. So this is what those field guides look like, and these are just a couple of the different examples of structured activities that came from those co-creation sessions. For example, one of the challenges that families brought up was that they're oftentimes blending radically different cultures. So one of the activities that really speaks to that is building a plate of food and using different foods to make a meal that makes their child feel whole, and what it looks like for things from different cultures to be together. Another pain point that was brought up was feelings of otherness or bullying. Many parents expressed that their children were already being bullied or worried that they would be bullied for being different. So one of the activities is drawing a superhero that has different aspects from their different cultures, and it's building somebody that can be admired and that can be looked up to. So over the course of 4 weeks, I co-created with a bunch of really awesome families all throughout New York City. We did this mostly over Facebook and through text because a lot of families, unsurprisingly, were very busy. And they would fill out these field guides, and then at the end they were uploaded to be shared with everyone else. So this is how it works. This is my friend Maya. She really liked her field guide, and she really liked the cartoons that came with them, so she drew her own versions on the cover. And Maya's family really wants to talk to her about being multiracial. So they started with the first activity, which is asking the child what they already know about being multiracial and what it means to them. And this is what Maya drew out. So she is Filipino, and she's also American. Her parents are first-generation immigrants, and her father is from Serbia. And to her, all three of them held equal importance in her life. So after filling out her activity, her parents would upload that to the repository, and that's what that looks like once it's on the website. All the field guides start out the same, and this is what they look like once they're filled out and on the website. And once it's there, other children who are participating, like my friend Avia here, who did that superhero activity I mentioned earlier, can see what she shared, and she can see this. So this is her superhero, Kathy. As you can see, she's holding a Jamaican flag, which represents her mother's heritage. And on her superhero costume is the Jewish Star of David. She's also really into cats, which is why she has cat ears. She wanted me to make sure I shared that with all of you. So because it's both physical and digital, it's really important. And it's great that families can document this permanently and be able to refer back to it in the future. And it also provides a space for families to connect with others as it continues to grow. Based on the surveys that happened before and after my 4-week piloting with families, there was a 20% increase in how parents think their children understand their multiracial identity. But more importantly to me, it's the things that families shared along the way. Things like one mother shared that I'm telling her things all the time, but I never just flat out asked her, what do you think about yourself? So for parents, it was really helpful for them to gauge an understanding of how what they were sharing with their children was being interpreted and absorbed. And from there, they could really change what they were saying or how they were saying and really help foster that understanding in their children. Another mother also shared that she was interested in writing a book about Filipino American because one of the activities was looking for books and she had a hard time finding them. And especially after these activities, she wants her daughter to help illustrate them. Again, because it's so physical and digital, it provides a lot of different ways for identity explorers to grow. In the future, for me, I think it would be really important to bring it back to the Midwest where I'm from and where these conversations about race really aren't happening. I think a lot of really great organizations could partner, such as 826 National, public libraries, and different museums to be able to distribute these field guides as widely as possible to these underserved communities. Before I leave the stage, I'd really like to thank a lot of people, particularly the multiracial families that worked with me to really help shape what my understanding of being multiracial means by sharing what it means to them. I'd also like to thank everybody who's watching from the comfort of their own homes or desk right now. I'd also really like to thank my best friend Lou and my family for being here today, as well as everybody from Statement Arts. Thank you so much for coming. And I'd also really like to thank Cheryl, the advisors, and everybody from DSI for being for me from day one. So thank you all, and thank you for coming.
Good morning, I'm Wenqi. Today, I'm honored to be here to introduce my thesis project. I want to share a story with you. This is Kevin. He is 16 years old. Kevin has a great childhood. He was very social, loved to meet new friends, and play soccer with them. However, 3 years ago, Kevin was in an accident, and everything changed. When Kevin woke up in the hospital, the world was not the same. He opened and closed his eyes again and again. He could barely see. He couldn't believe it. He hoped for a miracle. But there was no miracle. And then Kevin heard the words that would forever change his life. You are visually impaired. From that day on, Kevin was legally blind. Previously social and outgoing, Kevin was now fearful of outside world. He didn't go out as often because he felt terrified to communicate with others. In the winter of 2018, his parents brought him to a program for visually impairment teenagers in New York City to help him build his independence. It was there that I met Kevin and heard his story, along with the stories of 25 other teenagers in this program. These kids are not alone. They are only a small sample of over 400,000 visually impaired teenagers in New York City. During my research, I found the disability makes them feel different and isolated from peers. They don't socialize because they fear rejection. And lastly, they lack encouragement to go beyond their comfort zone. This is a barrier for them to try new things and build their confidence. Jay, the manager of the youth program, spoke to these challenges. Even though they are 17-year-old, their social skills are those like a 12-year-old. These fears are perceived different, preventing them from building the confidence needed to build social skills and independence. And confidence, there's a huge opportunity to help them build confidence. And confidence promotes independence. I learned through prototyping that the first step toward confidence can be built through communication skills and problem-solving skills. So my goal was to help them get out of their comfort zone and feel free to express themselves. And here's how I did it. Introducing See Your Superpower. See Your Superpower provides visually impaired teenagers a stage to build their confidence, transforming their imagination into reality. I chose a design intervention with drama at the heart of it. Drama is a fun and engaging way for teenagers to build their confidence, and here's why. Creativity stimulates imagination and self-expression. Drama offers a safe environment to try on new roles and communicate feelings. Planning, rehearsing, and performing provides a feeling of accomplishment. See Your Superpower contains 2 modules with different goals, Super Stage and Super Life. The first one is Super Stage. Super Stage is focusing on helping these teenagers build their communication skills. And with these communication skills, they will feel more equipped to socialize and overcome their fear of rejection. With a fear of communication, the intervention would be challenging. So I decided to find a way of these teenagers to bring in their interest and comfort from home. It was their hobbies that create a superhero-themed intervention. The teenagers were asked to create their own superhero characters. They were also excited to share these characters. Then they choose what the superpower they would have and why. After this, they went to superpower store and to buy something and image what the superpower they have. After this, They role play as this superhero and discussion and write their own script. For the next activity, we form a small group and use this script to perform. During this whole process, Kevin became very active, and that was the first time I saw his smile. He told me that was the happiest day at this program. The role play of drama can help visually impaired teenagers improve their creativity and enhance their self-confidence. But how do I transfer this sense of accomplishment and confidence gained through drama role-playing into real-life situation? So I use drama skills and transition the setting from a fake backdrop to the real life. I took the stage away so they could continue growing their skills where they will need most, outside the walls. Now bring the second module, Super Life. Super Life is focused on building their problem-solving skills needed outside the program. These problem-solving skills will equip visually impaired teenagers to go outside of their comfort zone. Kevin spent most of his time at the home for the past 2 years because he felt nervous going out. But with his new friend and the superhero clothes, he was ready. I told Kevin, "You are a superhero now. You are now Kevin. In that moment, you should try something that Kevin never tried before." Kevin's mission was go to Central Park. While on his way, he realized wasn't how to go there, and he needed to find out how to get there. He practiced his problem-solving skills in this moment and asked a store owner for directions. Kevin was afraid to cross the street because he didn't trust himself. But as a superhero, he felt a new sense of confidence that helped him take the first step. That day, he didn't just cross the street, but he went outside of his comfort zone. Doing this alone made Kevin feel so proud of himself. When I look Kevin's back, I feel his power. He became a brave and confident superhero. I saw the change in Kevin, but what about other teenagers? To help understand what we did together and to help share this sense of confidence with others, I designed a survey to measure the success of my intervention. Before Your Superpower, most of these teenagers didn't feel confidence in communication. But after their mission, there was significant improvement in confidence. Before their mission, most of the teenagers feel a little confidence to be able to solve problems. But their ability to problem solve greatly increased, meaning if something unexpected comes up in the future, they will be able to solve these problems. And finally, I measure self-confidence. Before the mission, teenagers didn't feel self-confidence. They didn't want to go outside alone. But now, they feel more confidence. The teenagers are already planning for their next mission. Through this project, I saw first how drama and role-playing can get visually impaired teenagers through a process of building confidence in real life. But this project is not over. I hope more kids can step out their comfort zone like Kevin. The next step is to take the mask off and show that they are heroes through their self-confidence and improve independence. Finally, I would like to share a quote to the people who are visually impaired and tell them, you are not alone in the world. In the real life, even if you don't have superpower, you can still be a hero. Thank you for my advisor, Jeff, my DSI team, Sharon, and DSI families and my family. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. No. Good morning, everyone. My name is Xujun. You can also call me Nick. Today, I'm here to talk to you about shelter dogs. How do you describe shelter animals to your families, to your friends? When you hear the term shelter dogs, this might be the image that first comes to your mind. No creatures are born to end up in a cage. If given fair chances, will their lives be different? Every minute, 6 dogs end up in a rescue shelter or humane society. 3.3 million dogs enter 3,500 animal shelters across the US each year. 670,000 dogs are euthanized each year. The goal of the Best Friends Animal Society is to end the killing in America's animal shelters by 2025. To achieve this goal, more people need to adopt from shelters and fewer people abandon their animals. While working as a volunteer at the adoption events, I saw how much New Yorkers love dogs. The events were always crowded with visitors, but what about after people seeing these dogs? Unfortunately, many people treat adoption events like visiting a zoo. They were only attracted by the coolness without understanding why these dogs were in shelters. People who already care about this issue will continue to care about it. But what about those who don't have the correct information? What will help them to start caring? According to the Washington Post, Americans will want more than 9.2 million dogs by 2036. With this huge demand for dogs, why aren't people adopting? For potential adopters, my research identified 2 main barriers. Barrier 1, potential adopters are lacking connections with shelter dogs. Adopters nearly always ask about the background of the dog. According to a recent report, the reasons they say for not adopting are: 1, my local shelters don't have the type of breed of dog I'm looking for. 2, they want a pure breed dog. 3, they think dogs from shelters have behavioral problems. Does the dog have any fears or triggers that will cause him to be aggressive? There's a huge psychological barrier with accepting the idea of adoption. They think dogs from shelters are harder to train than the dogs you can buy from a breeder. And buying from a breeder permits the opportunity for them to shape the dog's personality from the very beginning. We all have our favorite breed of dog, but all dogs are unique. It's important to understand looks don't equal behavior. Barrier 2, potential adopters have negative biases against shelter dogs. Many people do not consider adoption because they think it will be too much responsibility. They think those more challenging dogs should be left for the dedicated dog lovers who are willing to spend more time and energy fixing their behavioral problems and taking care of them. But it's less about the dog and more on how willing the owner is to tackle the issues. Things like chewing or getting into the garbage should be the least of adopters' concern, as these bad habits can be easily corrected. Think about it. Even if you buy a puppy, you will be training these skills out of them from the beginning. Training and socializing a dog never ends. Another problem is people don't educate themselves about the rescue world. The previously abused backstory is something potential adopters also love to assume when they get a dog from the shelter. But the truth is that most of the dogs haven't suffered from terrible abuse. They may have suffered the abuse of neglect, poor training, or just lack of supervision, so they ran away. Many people talk to animals, but not very many listen. There is something more important than love and affection for dogs, and that is understanding. Potential adopters are having these 2 barriers now because they are lacking an engaging way to learn the truth. As a result, they were only receiving the information passively. Without understanding, potential adopters won't have the knowledge and courage to adopt. But who are these potential adopters? I found 3 types. The first type is obsessed with looking at dog pictures and videos on social media. The second type is willing to build network with dog owners, including hearing their stories and sharing their experiences. The third type attends dog-related events. I realized the most important storytellers for potential adopters are the dogs. Let me introduce DogGone.Fun. The idea of DogGone.Fun is to create a community, help the dogs go into forever loving homes from shelters by telling the stories in a new and engaging experience. You may wonder, what do I mean by new and engaging experience? My solution is to attract potential adopters' interest to learn more about the rescue world and reduce their biases by turning shelter dogs into storytellers and share the information through multiple avenues. DogGone.Fun has two parts. The first part is online, to target the potential adopters that have the interest of looking at dog pictures and videos on social media. The second part is an in-person event. It's where the three online elements come together and strengthen the connection between shelter dogs and potential adopters. Now, I'm going to talk a little more about how it works. The first online element is voice acting. I wrote stories of the dogs in the first person based on the information shared by volunteers and shelter on the website. I then posted on Hit Record and started a voice acting challenge. I got 11 contributors and for 2 different stories, and here's an example. There's a sound, but I don't know why it's not. I will go to the next slide. So the second online element is news reporting. By turning adopted dogs into news reporter to share the stories of the dogs waiting to get adopted. The acceptance of multiple forms of storytelling is very high and often gets more likes and comments, which means more engagement. The third online element is art creating. The art portraits you are seeing now are all created by artist volunteers. I didn't limit the forms, but the only requirement is to create art based on the story I share with them. After the art was created, I added a caption and posted on social media to raise awareness. Potential adopters showed interest in learning these stories in many ways, after which I invited them to an in-person event. It's called DogGone Experience, from the shelters to the solutions. I partnered with Animal Care Centers of NYC. A representative came and discussed various reasons why dogs are entering shelters. We started with an ice-breaking activity by making assumptions of why dogs are entering shelters, and then we vote on top 3 reasons as a group. After that, we heard the voice acting story, and the potential adopters may realize some of their assumptions were wrong. We also did empathy maps to find out ways how each of us can contribute, and wrote postcards to thank the employees and volunteers from the shelters. The participants loved and enjoyed the experience, and there's a lot of interest of joining and hosting the future event. I want DogGone.Fun can be something people walk away from feeling they can take action. I'm in conversation with Animal Care Centers of NYC to discover a diverse form of collaboration. I hope this can be adapted into their existing system smoothly so they can reach out to more potential adopters. The dogs you are seeing now are the dogs I posted from February to March of this year. There were 23 of them and 21 got saved or adopted. With all these great materials and examples of how each of us can contribute, I hope the public can not only sympathize with animals, but take practical actions to save vulnerable lives, whether it's through adoption or educate others about the truth. Whether you love animal or not, they still have the rights of a life freed from abuse and neglect. Animal problems are often caused by human beings, meaning facing the problem of our animal are social problems we are responsible for addressing. As a designer with a background in advertising, I believe there are opportunities for all of us to do social good, no matter what your profession is. It's not about just saving a dog immediately. It's about changing people's perspective and decrease their biases so they can eventually make the choice to adopt or help others or encourage others to do the same. One of the big life lessons Shelter Dog taught me is, even when facing difficulties, love can heal. Thank you for everyone from DSI, and thank you for everyone encouraged and helped me during the process. Thank you. Here's a story.
Hello, my name is Bruno. I'm about 1 year and 2 months old. I came into the shelter as an owner surrender. My previous owner only kept me for about 3 months. I don't think they understand me well. Or maybe it's just because they're inexperienced with dogs.
Yeah, so I just posted the script of the story online, and a stranger, the volunteer, record the stories for us. So it's really easy way to help the dogs for people to learn the truth. Thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone, my name is Yuwen, this is Kubo. Our project is based in Beijing, where we both have lived for the past few years. This story is from Haidian district, where have more than 40 colleges. We are shocked by the report from the Chinese Association of STD and AIDS Prevention and Control. By the end of June 2017, there were 1,224 cases of AIDS among students in Beijing. 722 cases were college students aged 18 to 22. 89.48% were male. 86.7% were homosexually transmitted. So this is not really talked about because of Chinese culture. We want to address the issue of HIV transmission through sex of Chinese gay youth.
To dig into this issue, we interviewed 34 gay students, and 9 organizations, 5 experts focus on this issue. Our first insight from those interviews were that students neither get comprehensive sex education from their school nor parents. And so students access their information from their information online. They try to find the right information to take care of themselves. But what happens when there's multiple websites selling different things, and the things are different from what you're told around you? One HIV positive student told us, I used condoms almost every time. I had a medical exam each quarter. I got HIV from my ex-boyfriend from having sex one time without condoms. And through their talk, they say that I read online that I should use protection, but sometimes I get caught up in the moment and don't use a condom. But my thinking is just one time, it will be okay. And also, lots of students we interviewed told us how the condoms influence their relationship. That they say that I don't want to hurt the relationship with my partner. If he wants to have sex without condom, I would not say no. But after, HIV would loom large in my thinking. So that our insight is the students' thinking thinking using a condom make it seems like they're not clean, or they are afraid that their partners is not clean. That's what's when we realized that is an entry point for us used to overcome stigma. So we think gay men in Beijing colleges have a high rate of HIV because they do not consistently use due to the stigma surrounding condoms.
It is important for us to know the Chinese government contribute to this conversation. They provide the information about condom and condom use, and also free condoms. But the hard part here is providing condoms and education about sex alone has not been encouraging men to use condoms. It also has affected HIV positive men. This was where we tried to see what NGOs were doing in this field. So we spoke to the NGOs to ask them how the specific address condom use with gay men. We learned from NGOs that actually the biggest contributor to the stigma around condom use is that it is understood that the only reason gay men would request to use condom is to prevent the risk of HIV. In contrast to heterosexual relationships, where there may be to desire to prevent the spread of STDs, but the method is birth control. Looking through the messages that the Chinese government-related media and NGOs were spreading about condom use and HIV prevention, we identified that the language is too formal and too serious. It feels unapproachable, and it's like something college-age students do not want to talk about that. This is directly related to where and how condoms are given to gay men in China. This way they are dispensed and distributed also presents an issue. The typical distribution for free condoms in non-profits, hospitals, or HIV testing centers. Therefore, it increases pressure for college students because they are not given in space where they can engage. What if the condoms were given in social spaces? Something that came, so the government and NGOs assume people will seek the free condoms out and know why they should use them.
So that's how our project Condoms 101 come in. We thinking about how might we shift the perception of condom use among gay men, gay male college students in Beijing, to destigmatize their use. The goal for the Condoms 101 is to shift the perception of condom from being something formal and medical to impersonal, from obsessive to playful, young, and accepting. So how does Condoms 101 encourage gay men to talk about condom use? We hold a workshop in March at U Space and in the Haidian district, which is near to the campus. The 25 people participant in our workshop include gay students from colleges and diverse experts working on this issue. In the workshop, we did a test for students, include 10 basic questions about safe sex and condom use. None of the students were able to get more than half questions correct, and actually they were really surprised by the result because before the test, they are confident on that they know how to use condoms. After the test, we provide with facts and had a group conversation. And through the co-creation in the workshop, we shaped the language that Condoms 101 would offer around condom use, both in the public and with their partners. We also were able to learn that the gap and opportunities were by sharing personal stories, use the condom, and how they're asking for using condoms with their partners, and discuss how to use condoms even when the situation was weird and hard. We wanted to make we could understand what breaking the feeling of discomfortable looked and feel like. One idea that came out on the workshop was a secret signal for condoms. Every time they say the secret signal, it means to get a condom because they want to have sex. That was the condoms was a signal for their intimate relationship and was a way to build the trust and the rapport.
Students feel the experience of getting condoms were not friendly. When we asked, do you use free condoms from the government? None of the students said yes. They used the word that it feels too medical, impersonal, and oppressive. How does Condom 101 improve the way condoms are dispensed and accessible for gay men? An idea was explored was a toy vending machine to deliver the free condoms with the accessible message about condom use. The toy vending machine is very popular for the youth in China. You can find the vending machine everywhere in shopping mall, and people love to get some surprise from the machine. We put some condoms in vending machine in social spaces like youth space and gay bar where the students like to hang out. The student used game coin we provided to get a ball which had a condom inside. Additionally, to combine all we learned were fill the ball with more than just a condom. Inside, we placed a card with QR code linked to assess our information about condom use, a place of feedback and encouragement to everyone who received the ball. How could Condoms 101 access a larger audience? To access a bigger audience, we are working with Sex Cheats to make fun video to deliver basic knowledge about safe sex. Sex Cheats is a social media and focuses on the sex and gender. Sex Cheats has 2,710,000 followers in Weibo and 35,600 followers in Bilibili. Bilibili is a Chinese YouTube channel.
This is Condom 101. We expert what is a conversation or condoms and change the language to make it more humor and friendly. We also work with our access. And the students give us really positive feedback. They say that the project is creative and inspiring to them. It was the first time they actually feel open to talk about condoms and share with their partners that they want to use condom. It's increase their perception and knowledge and also make it more acceptable for them. And the feedback from our partners is also so good. They said that it's lovely and magically inviting the issue. They would like to work with us after the thesis is over. Okay. So thank you for our DS family, big family, and thank you for our partners working with us in China. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, that was loud. Sorry about that. Hi. I'm here to introduce you to Camp Sharon and Karen. creating new space for parents of transgender and gender nonconforming kids to explore their own uncertainty and develop new ways to demonstrate support. So I'm Zach. Hi. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm going to start with some thank yous because I'm going to forget at the end if I don't. But everyone on here deserves a lot of gratitude, especially Lou, who's over here in the cohort. She took all the pictures you're going to see, and they're incredible. So everyone, thank you for sharing your talents and caring about my project. So I'm Zach, and I'm a member of the LGBTQ+ community. These are my parents. They're here. And when I came out to my parents, they responded in just the right way. They just kind of went like this. It was awesome. The problem is that most LGBTQ+ kids do not receive such a supportive response. Half of all LGBTQ kids receive a negative response when they come out. 1 in 4 are kicked out of their homes. There are a lot of identities that fit under LGBTQ+, but for the sake of my project, I chose to focus on the needs of parents with transgender and gender nonconforming kids. They fit under here. Transgender is an umbrella term that describes people with different gender identities or gender expressions than what they were assigned at birth. The best way to remember this is that sexual orientation is about who you go to bed with, gender identity is who you go to bed as. And 40% of transgender people attempt suicide at some point in their life, and I thought that they were the audience that really needed the most attention. So I was grateful to be able to start attending support group meetings from a group in Manhattan called the Trans Families Project. They're associated with PFLAG Manhattan. And I learned a bunch of common challenges that happen between all these parents. Some parents find themselves in unfamiliar territory and are unequipped to respond thoughtfully. Megan shared that when her son Oliver first told us, they didn't handle it very well. They didn't say the things she should have said. She didn't say, I'm 100% behind you. Parents make the mistake of addressing their own uncertainty before their kids' explicit needs. This one mother, Judith, who I met at a support group meeting, said, how could my child just throw away their name like that? And to call it their dead name. Their father and I worked so hard to pick a meaningful name for her. Parents struggled to internalize that even with good intentions, their actions can have a negative impact on their kids. Robert, a dad who joined my co-design group, said, we've been heading in this direction for 18 years. We've only been here for a few days. We will fuck up sometimes. It's bound to happen. One thing was clear is that these parents just love their kids. They're not sure how to show them. At these meetings, I also was grateful to meet Liz. Liz adopted a daughter from China and raised her as a single parent on the Upper West Side. One day, her daughter came home from the mall and said, hey mom, I went shopping in the boys section, and I'm a boy, my name is Russell, and just walked down the hall to his bedroom. Liz, in that moment, was totally shell-shocked, but it was apparently clear that what she needed to do in that moment was only show up for Russell. She put her own needs aside in that moment and decided to handle those separately. Liz also managed to do the right thing at the right time. So I was grateful to be able to work with some of these parents from the Trans Family Project to co-design a way to help parents through these sorts of challenges. And working with these parents, we defined 3 distinct audiences that attend these support group meetings. The protective parent focuses on preventing harm for their child no matter the consequences. These kids learn that it's not okay to be who they are. The supportive parent, on the other hand, allows their child to take the lead and makes big decisions collaboratively. These parents try hard to learn how their kids want to be supported. The most interesting to me were the timid parents. Every support group meeting I attended, there were a group of parents who would sit there silently, would not make eye contact, with pained expressions on their face. And so from here, I wondered how we could address their needs. So how might we help these parents figure out how to show support on their own terms? I thought back to a time in my life when I was able to show up on my own terms and really learned through discovery, play, and community. And that was the 8 summers I spent at overnight summer camp. That's me back then. But I thought to these parents, and how do we create a more accepting and welcoming environment? And the answer was pretty clear. We're going to send them to camp. And so with the help of these parents that I co-designed with, we started looking at the individual parent needs that we had defined and how they link to elements of summer camp. So parents need resources to reference when they reach future challenges. We're going to make some camp handbooks that they can reference in the future. Parents need opportunities to share on their own terms. Let's reformat camp meetings. Parents want space to ask questions and make mistakes without fear of judgment. Let's build a community and create a shared definition of what that trust looks like. And parents need a chance to meet trans adults who fit their model of success. Every parent during the time that I worked with this community told me that they sought an example of a transgender person who had a well-paying job, who had a community that loved them, and someone they could call their own. And so for us, we wanted to create, I brought some friends who are trans-identified to camp to be camp counselors and facilitate that kind of conversation. So without further ado, welcome to Camp Sharon and Karen. We had a really busy day together at camp. It was awesome. Once we, upon arrival, everyone received their Camp Sharon and Karen handbook. And then once we warmed up and did some introductions, we all gathered in the Sharon circle to share our stories. Here you see Kathy and John. They were a couple who came to camp 3 months after their son came out to them as trans. And they're really modeling what camp was all about. She's sharing, he's caring. Also, like my fellow cohort members had a superhero activity. The goal here was to create an opportunity for parents to figure out what their personal strengths were. And then we had arts and crafts. This was by far everyone's favorite part of camp. Everyone made 2 friendship bracelets, and if you can see, this is Liz, who I introduced you to before. Liz came to camp as a returning camper. She came to help facilitate this discovery process for other parents. Then we had a great activity that introduced these parents to nonviolent communication practice. And to bring energy back up, we played some fly swatter Jeopardy. They got really into it. I'll let you see for yourselves. Things got so serious. It was great. And then my 2 friends came to camp as counselors. This is Bex on the left and my roommate Sam on the right. They both have jobs, they both have communities, and are themselves in a relationship. And they were able to facilitate, I think, the most powerful moment of camp. And that was a conversation that left a lot of parents expressing that they felt like they were prepared moving forward. And that brought me to thinking about a commercial that played in Massachusetts every single day as a kid.
Because of camp, I turned out just fine.
But Kathy and John had a really beautiful moment towards the end of camp where they expressed that our son just told us his name last week. After being here today, I understand why he asked for our support coming out to everyone else. Camp Sharon and Karen, a new space for learning how to become who your kid needs you to be. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Archie. I've been teaching thesis at the School of Visual Arts Design for Social Innovation program due to the enormous trust of Cheryl Heller and the support of our foundational thesis faculty since the first group of thesis students ever walked across this stage in 2014, which is 5 years ago. I always wanted to teach. I remember all of my best teachers, especially the ones that sparked something for me. Mr. Furlick in the 5th grade, Jay Stokel in my first year of architecture school at Virginia Tech, and my sister is even a teacher, an absolute gift to her students. Yet as long as I've been doing it and as long as I've wanted it in my life, I still don't know why I teach. I always assumed that to be in a position to teach, you had to be done learning. maybe not completely, but in the sense of having enough knowledge and experience to be able to respond on a dime with the perfect piece of feedback or reference or provocation that could illuminate something in their brains and set them off on a new course with conviction and a sparkle in their eye. But teaching is not like that. It is a struggle. I do not have all the answers. I am self-conscious and self-doubting. I get nervous. But I think that this year I finally understand that this is actually what it's all about. I am here to learn just as much, if not more, than my students, and through that, learn from them. This is the role of an educational institution, for teachers and students both, to have the freedom to ask questions and be vulnerable, to struggle through the process a little bit, to wonder why you feel like the only one listening, to do something once and then do it again and again and again until you're cross-eyed and come out with a small little insight that one day might become a diamond. This is thesis, this is design, and it's needed now more than ever. Every year I have the absolute privilege, I also cry, sometimes I get like emotional. Every year I have the absolute privilege to stand alongside a handful of brilliant human beings that are striving to solve something that they feel convicted about changing, something that they see as wrong, something that they will change the course of life for another human being that needs it. And how amazing is that this place exists and that the world has people like Umila, Jelynne, Zoe, Jay, Danielle, Mary Beth, and Corinne. Woo! These 7 women have heart. They are brave, and I have no doubt that they will contribute to the betterment of our world in ways that we can't yet even imagine. The best part is they already have. Umila dug deep and with reverent perseverance went headfirst into the world of domestic partner violence and her very own Indo-Caribbean community, arriving at a genuine and thoughtful way to involve the community in a survivor's journey. Jelynne and Zoe looked at something so large that most people watch it happen around them, as gentrification. In the productive path of environmentally focused solutions in Jersey City, they embraced the overlooked stories of those affected by change and armed a community leader with those stories. Jay took an innate interest in the world of fashion and used it to connect back to an issue affecting her community in a Chinese town thousands of miles away. And the result was an artful celebration of a centuries-old tradition, enabling the hope of new futures for embroidery artists, her own family included. And then there's Danielle, Mary Beth, and Corinne. Fuck. I don't think we've ever had a group of 3. I was nervous, but these women proved themselves over and over again. Every Monday night I arrived at DSI completely taken aback by their work ethic and tenacity. In a time where it's easy to feel helpless in a pursuit to be an active and productive citizen, they figured out a way. They met fast and often with too many people to count, literally listened to their stories and built a solution around one in particular, one that had the potential to affect everyone in this room and everyone outside of it too. I want to thank you 3 for working as hard as you did and for teaching me along the way. Friends and family, please enjoy the inspiring hard work of these incredible people that I'm honored to now call my colleagues.
Hello. Okay, no big deal. I'm Danielle, and this is Corinne and Mary Beth. So, the 3 of us came to graduate school to turn our fear of climate change into action. So, after 2 years of hard work and passion, we are here to share what we hope will move the needle on this global crisis. There we are. So the good news is, in the last few years, environmental health has visibly moved to the mainstream conversation. The bad news is, this is in no small part the result of our federal leadership deeming climate change a non-issue, pulling us from the Paris Agreement and sending the message that Americans don't care about climate change. But this isn't true. According to Yale Climate Communications, 76% of Americans are moderately to extremely worried about climate change, believe humans are the cause, and that government should take steps to address it. But with this lack of leadership or participation in a global strategy, American citizens feel helpless and confused about their role in this issue. Kaylee, a new mom, shared with us her fear about a sustainable future for her son, saying, "I feel helpless and hopeless even when I make changes. I worry about the amount of actual wide-scale impact." And this feeling of helplessness makes sense. It's hard to believe that any of our individual behaviors are going to have an impact to reduce the near 40 billion metric tons of CO2 that are released annually, or the 150 million tons of sea ice melting. But then again, what even are metric tons? How are we supposed to connect to the enormous scope of this problem while also being told we're running out of time and that it's on each of us to do our part, particularly when the suggested actions include things like recycling our peanut butter jars? There is, however, one place where we can see the impact of our sustainable behaviors, and that's in our neighborhoods. We may not know if our actions are reducing this 40 billion metric tons of CO2, but we do know if our actions are affecting our local water supply, whether they're keeping it clean or whether they're polluting it. And these local expressions of environmental health are the same issues that are controlled by local government, which means they're controlled by the residents in our neighborhoods. So they're controlled by you and me. The problem is only 8% of the population is engaging locally to make their communities more sustainable. So in October of 2018, we met Rebecca, who is a successful civic educator, and Laura, Vicky, and Regis, all Ulster County residents. And these four make up part of that 8%. From the outside, this small community in upstate New York may appear powerless to a global threat, but that wasn't the case. In late 2017, a fossil fuel plant was proposed for construction just 700 feet from Regis and Vicky's home. A plant that would affect their air quality and their water quality, and all while producing no jobs for the community. So this group of four, they formed partnerships with local organizations and elected officials, and they fought back. And as their knowledge grew, their confidence grew, as evidenced by this quote from Regis: "We will succeed because the citizens have become engaged with the workings of local government." And he was right. After 1 year, they won. The power plant withdrew their plan and replaced it with a green energy battery storage facility, an alternative project proposed by the community. And they saved their community from adding 30,000 metric tons of CO2. But more importantly, they saved their water and their air and their backyards. So if there's so much opportunity for impact this way, why is only 8% of the population engaging for change?
So throughout our research, we spoke with more than 100 citizens and 40 subject matter experts, including elected officials, educators, and environmental activists. There they are. We heard repeatedly that the main barriers that citizens face are knowledge of local issues, belief your voice doesn't matter, lack of time and convenience, and lack of community when taking action. And the power plant was no exception. It took more than 15 months and over 200 actions. It was hard, it was exhausting, and at moments it was terrifying. When we heard this story and met the team, we recognized the opportunity to design something that not only eased their challenges, but shared their process with others. Engaging with local government shouldn't be a full-time job. We want to make civic engagement accessible for everyone. We dug deeper, embedding ourselves in Ulster County, leading the team through co-creation workshops, and uncovering their needs and areas of opportunity. We uncovered the process that made them successful, not just for this project, but for every project that involved local government. We learned what would reduce the learning curve required for this work, bring new community members into these projects, and allow them to see the impact of their efforts more quickly. With these insights in mind, we developed a series of initial concepts which were around an education platform that would connect citizens to one another and to resources that they needed to help them begin their projects. So in Ulster County, we led a series of prototyping workshops to test this education idea with over 20 individuals involved in local government. And they ranged from activists to environmental economists, from lawyers to candidates for local office. And we learned things, a lot of things, and they were very, very helpful. And primarily, we learned that education is a byproduct of action, and that instead of education, our tool needed to focus on bringing the right people together in a room as soon as possible, and that together, you would start building your strategy, and you would learn as you go. We returned to Ulster County to test this updated concept, a platform that would connect citizens around shared skills and diverse interests. And shared interest and diverse skills, prompting them to meet in person and begin building their strategy. They told us we were absolutely onto something, and armed with all of this information, we created CommonJane. The name is inspired by Jane Jacobs, who is a famed New York urban planner who believed that cities should be designed for the people who live in them. The name is a nod to the power that everyday citizens hold to protect their communities, their common ground. CommonJane is a digital community organizer built by and for the people that want to make change in their communities. We know that a digital experience can't replace the impact of the work being done face-to-face, and we designed it with this in mind, identifying our main goal, which is to lower the existing barriers to engagement and make offline relationship building easier.
So we learned first that successful civic engagement projects start with getting the right people on your team. So having people who have the right balance of knowledge and experience. So this doesn't necessarily just include your neighbors who share your concerns, but it is also local organizations, such as NGOs, elected officials, and municipal leaders. And so together, these multiple perspectives actually form a coalition of partnerships that you can then use to address your issue. Another thing that they require is actually an understanding of the laws and processes that govern your community. So also including a knowledge of how to build a strategy and education resources on how local government works. And while civic engagement is rewarding in a lot of ways, no matter how many hours this work requires, it's assumed that people would do it for free. And we actually saw firsthand how limiting this can be. So CommonJane is backed by the Hudson Valley Current, which is a local currency where you can actually earn incentives that you can redeem at participating businesses. So with CommonJane, users can earn currents for things like hosting a Q&A session or taking notes at a community board meeting. So combined, these elements form CommonJane, which is an invitation for every citizen to get involved in local government and protect their communities. And here's how a look at how CommonJane works.
Welcome to CommonJane, your invitation to community impact. Start by selecting your interest, and CommonJane will connect you to the projects in your community focused on those issues. Here, you can see all the projects that match your interest. Click on a project to learn more about it. Before joining a project, you can see an overview of its details, such as the project goal, existing members of the team, and opportunities to earn currents. When you request to join, you can personalize your schedule availability and the assets you can offer to the team, from policy experience to meeting space. Once you're accepted into the project, you can see the full range of resources available, including uploaded files, the calendar of upcoming events, and discussion board. By tracking your activities on the project timeline, you help everyone stay aligned on the team's efforts while also building a case study that users can later reference to see what strategies worked and what pitfalls to avoid. Civic engagement is a process of continual learning, so CommonJane provides resources to help you along the way. No matter what phase your project is in, there is a guide to help, from key questions for your very first meeting to building a strategy to scale your solutions. With CommonJane, fear and hope for change is turned into collective action.
So our prototyping participants talked to us about just how valuable this tool would be for them and what they're doing. The first, Liz, she's an Ulster County resident and she frequently leads projects, and she talked about the member database, and she said, this would help me find and recruit team members faster for my projects. Another was Evelyn. She is a green energy economist, and she was thrilled at the opportunity to learn from past projects. And she said, being able to see other projects like yours that were successful and why is extremely valuable. And finally, Giovanna, who is a historic preservationist, talked about the impact of seeing what's happening in your community. She said it's so powerful to see people improving their communities, especially when what's happening globally is so upsetting. So by working in Ulster County, we were able to paint a vision of the future of civic engagement. And to make this a reality, we are going to continue our partnership with Rebecca and this community and roll out CommonJane in phases, measuring its impact as we go and adjusting as necessary. And even though we started in Ulster County, it doesn't end there. This process of civic engagement is available to every person across America. And we know that CommonJane won't solve climate change, but we think that the people who use it just might. If only 8% of the population is getting involved in local government and 4 people can stand up to a power plant, imagine what could happen if the other 92% of the population joined them. So change starts in your community. It starts by meeting your neighbors, by building relationships. So start small, think big, and join others. And proud of you guys. We don't have an official thank you slide, but we just wanted to say thank you to Archie, to Cheryl, to our entire DSI cohort, and especially to our community up in Ulster County, many of who are actually here today, and it's so wonderful to see the hard work that you guys are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Umila, and I'm here to talk about something. I'm here to talk about something I've witnessed in my community, but I hope we have a future without. Last year, in New York City, there were over 100,000 intimate partner violence reports. And there are 30 intimate partner violence homicides. The very first happened on New Year's, and it was the death of Stacy Singh, who was murdered by her husband. She was a young mother, and she was one of several domestic violence-related murders in the Indo-Caribbean community. This is my community. And this is my family. They're from a small country in South America called Guyana. And like the term indicates, Indo-Caribbean is a hybrid of 2 cultures. Indo-Caribbeans come from Guyana, Trinidad, Suriname, and Jamaica, and have Indian roots. For thesis, I partnered with the Jiayi Sisters, a grassroots organization of survivors and activists working to end gender-based violence in our community. Intimate partner violence, also known as domestic violence, is a range of coercive and abusive behaviors. It goes beyond physical violence. Perpetrators exert power and control to limit the survivor's choices. From survivors, I have heard stories where perpetrators limit their access to their medication, to their bank accounts, and to their families. And for me, breaking this pattern of abuse and this pattern of power and control meant that I had to center the survivor's power and control, and not mine. So this meant I passed the decision-making powers to them. And I began this process by examining trauma and learning trauma-informed practices. And I realized during this process I can facilitate towards their healing. And my biggest takeaway from this was that survivors need a strong social support network. They need someone to turn to. So my second principle became to restore their connections to community, and I began to explore gaps in their existing support network. I want to introduce you to Shelly. Shelly is an Indo-Caribbean survivor who needs someone to share her story with. But when she turns to family and friends, they don't listen. She feels judged, she feels blamed, oops. She feels judged, she feels blamed, and she feels ashamed. And when she doesn't want to turn to formal services due to fear, immigration concerns, and stigma. Like many of the survivors I spoke to, they felt overwhelmed by the court and criminal justice systems. And Shelley really felt stuck without someone to turn to. She really felt stuck without having support from her community. But then there were community members like Alicia, a young Indo-Caribbean woman whose sister is in an abusive relationship, and she really wants to support her sister, but she isn't sure how. So she looks to resources in the community and she attends a support group. And while she enjoys meeting women from her community, she leaves unsure on how to support her sister. She sees the local precinct tabling services on domestic violence, but she feels intimidated by the cops and is worried her family might see her at the table. So I also realized we need to provide community with agency and information on how to better support survivors. And the problem that I was looking at was that survivors and community members are disconnected. Survivors are already isolated from their community, and the community's lack of information furthers this gap. So how could I bridge the gap? There was a community who wanted to heal, and there was a community who wanted to help, and they both needed agency. So I thought collaboration was a way to do this. So I explored how might I foster collaboration between survivors and community members. Introducing SheCollab. This is my intervention, and it is a co-designed program where survivors and community members work together to generate new sources of support based in community. And we begin with letting survivors define their needs. While service providers want to center survivors' choices, there aren't many opportunities for survivors to inform what resources look like. And from all of the survivors, I heard that they wanted support in community and not systems. And so I spoke to survivors, and they generated a long list of unmet needs. For my presentation, I will be focusing on peer support, healthy relationship education, and safety. And then we invite community members to join us on this conversation. And together we brainstorm and ideate what support looks like together. And to create well-informed community members who can offer the support survivors want, we train them along the way. And then we begin building and prototyping the sources of support. So I'm excited to share with you what the community has built together. The first project was led by a survivor, and it was a public art piece. And while the survivor is successfully launching her public art campaign that she's posting in the community with messages, I realized that we need to shift the burden off of survivors. Most of the individuals in this space are survivors themselves, so they're already doing the work. So we really need to partner with community members. So survivors said that they needed safety, so we partnered with a fitness studio and we offered a self-defense class. Survivors said that the community needed healthy relationship education, so we partnered with a youth group at temples, and we had a conversation on healthy relationships, and they designed posters supporting survivors for their temples. Survivors said that they needed peer support, and the community said that the greatest resource in community are the individuals themselves. So we trained them to become community advocates. And it included a group of survivors, a business owner, college students, and other community members. An expert in the field shared her knowledge to advise community advocates on how to better support survivors. And together we realized we also need to design for safety and confidentiality. We need to protect both the identity of community advocates and the survivors themselves. And the problem is a multi-layered problem, and the stigma is deep-rooted. And together, the community has generated multiple levels of support And what I'm seeing and what I'm hoping is that survivors see these messages of support and knows that their community supports them. From messages on posters to a community of advocates, I hope the survivors open up and access the support they need. And this is Richmond Hill. It's the community I grew up in, and it's home to a large Indo-Caribbean community in Queens. The 2 purple pins represent the 2 domestic violence murders in the community, Stacey Singh's and Rajwanti Baldeo's. The blue pins represent community organizations who would like to offer support. And we're building a new network. In this process, I have worked with 9 community organizations. We have trained 11 community members to be advocates, and there are 43 participants altogether. And the community is really breaking the silence. 2 survivors have shared their stories to new audiences. There are 2 survivor-led projects, and we're building male allies in this space. And I have asked to co-lead Jahaji Sisters Grassroots Action Team, where I'll be continuing to do this work and co-design new sources of support for survivors. One of the community advocates is the owner of this juice bar. And with him, he really talked about how can small businesses become a safe space and offer resources to survivors. And it's been really powerful to witness community members leading the creation of new resources in untraditional spaces. And I'm excited to see what this would look like in other communities. This is not just happening in my community, this is happening everywhere. We're seeing gender-based violence in all communities, and we saw this nationally with Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford, a survivor of sexual assault, was questioned and blamed. This is an expression of oppression in a greater society where we put the blame on survivors. We need to stop telling survivors they're weak. We need to stop telling survivors that they're letting this happen to them. I have been so inspired by the strength and resilience of the survivors I spoke with and the survivors who continue to tell their stories to fight for change every day. We need to change our narrative. We need to support survivors. We need to believe survivors. And we need to figure out how. And I believe it begins with listening. It's that simple. Thank you. I want to thank all of the survivors who have collaborated with me along the way. I want to thank my mom, my dad, to my DSI family, and I want to thank all of the community members who are working with me to create support in our community. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jiayi. I was born in a beautiful city called Xujun in southeastern China. And my love for fashion grew in me since a very young age. It was influenced by my mother, who used to add fine embellishment to her clothing only using needle and thread. When I got a little, I learned that she can not only add decoration to her clothes, but she can create fine artworks. This is one of her award-winning artwork called Lilac. The special technique that she applied to this artwork is called Su embroidery art. Su embroidery art is a traditional art style originated in my home city, and it has a history of over 2,000 years. In 2006, Su embroidery was included in the National Heritage List in China. Now, Su embroidery is renowned for its refinement and elegance. Animals such as goldfish and ducks are typical objects in the creation of Su embroidery art. Natural landscape or vegetation, another common object of the sewing embroidery art. Because my mom's expertise in this field, she was crowned with the title Sew Embroidery Artist. Earlier this year, she retired, but she's not too excited. She told me a lot of her peers had been struggling to make a living. Based on her predicament, I did some research. There are 150 studios and 100,000 sewing embroidery artists in the Suzhou area, and nearly all of them are women. Unfortunately, 80% of the artists are below the poverty line. A Chinese author who's committed to traditional art research even predicted that in 10 years, with no one to inherit this technique, sewing embroidery would be on the verge of extinction. As a Chinese who deems traditional art as a part of a culture, I was having a heartbreaking moment when learning this matter. So, to get a deeper understanding of their current situations, I interviewed 8 studios, including 56 artists and 4 executives. I learned that they were once supported by the government. However, after the government cut off all their funds and support since 2006 for greater economic development, along with swift market changing in China, sewing embroidery art that still maintains a high price is less favorable than it was in 10 years. So, their cost, time, and effort to make artwork and maintain their business are going up. At the same time, the sales going down, their market values are recognized by the public going down, and the social exposure without any support are going down as well. So, with a deeper research and one-on-one interviews, I learned that artists' livelihoods are threatened due to the disconnection from the modern market and lack of exposure. They want more economic opportunities and their value to be recognized. So, how might I increase economic opportunities for sewing embroidery artists? Back in China, a survey I conducted that was answered by 230 adults shows 2 main reasons why people stop buying sewing embroidery. It is too expensive and it lacks modernity. On the artist side, they have a similar concern. We've tried some new themes of the artworks, but without much progress. We need to find out undiscovered space for our technique. It could lead us to grow and develop in a much stronger way. However, without any support, we will have to start from scratch. Incorporating thoughts from both sides, I learned that they need a new market space where they can cater their techniques to modern consumers. This is their current business journey. The only product they sell to the customers is framed artwork with traditional themes. So I asked myself, could the force of fashion open a door for them and help increase their exposure and improve their livelihoods? Then I went meet fashion designers. During a conversation with them, we discussed the possibility and the feasibility of feeding sewing embroidery art into the fashion world. From acknowledging its artistic value of the artworks to taking the essence of their special techniques to applying it on a more modernized form. Then I made a mood board that represents our collective thoughts. It also functions as a reference for my further research and design. I took the mood boards to a larger group of professionals that later became my test group, covering local handcrafting communities, sustainable fashion labels and organizations, and online group chats. I asked them, on what fashion item you would like to see these concepts? Majority of them answered handbag. So following their ideas, I started to collaborate with handbag designer and the representative of the artist group. We co-designed handbags. We share thoughts on how to incorporate sewing embroidery art to the public without losing its original taste. Starting from designing patterns that could take advantage of their techniques, and the color palette that could highlight their work, and the frame and the material of the bag that could meet the sewing embroidery art. I took back the prototype to the rest of the group, and they share the same opinion on moving forward. Doing embroidery on bags is a great idea. It's similar to what we're already doing here. I can deliver my own thoughts on a blank canvas. More space to show my techniques, good price range so that I can support my family. And most importantly, I love bags. So here comes a new journey. By collaborating with contemporary fashion designers with their existing resource, sewing embroidery artists were able to explore a new market space, handbags, to cater their technology to the customers who in return will increase their interest in learning their stories and their true value. The company I'm working with is called Benno. It's a New York-based fashion label that has a lot of shared value with us. And this is the main reason I choose to work with them. It's a fair trade company. It attaches importance to women's rights. It's handmade. And its elegant style totally fits with our need. So after receiving our design draft, within 15 days, 120 hours, the sewing embroidery artists finished their work. So let's see the final look. So, like you guys reacted, their collection totally exceeded our expectations to a great extent. Some details. By adding creative thoughts on the original design, the artist delivered a very dynamic and exquisite look. So I named my project the Slow Hands Lab. And to question, can traditional artists keep up with the speed of the modern society and expose their true value? People, you guys can go buy these handbags on Banner website, featuring our project so that the potential customers will be able to learn who made the bags. A special intro tag will also be placed inside the bag with the introduction of our collaboration. So after this collaboration, 80% of the regular income per month were secured for the participating artists, which significantly lift them up from the poverty level. Among a test group of 42 people, 67% have an interest in learning more about the sewing embroidery artist's story, while 45% have a buying demand. More business opportunities are created as our partner brand decided to add more orders on this collection. 5 fashion bloggers decided to write about our collection, and 2 local events are under conversation for the next month. 100% positive feedback were received by the artist group. And among all these comments, the following words touched me the most. As an embroidery artist, needle is my pen and thread is my pigment. Looking back on my career of 30 years, this project is a special moment, which has stirred my passion again. I feel stronger. I feel valued. Looking forward, I'll be continuously helping the more sewing embroidery artists in finding a clear and brighter path to their near future. Also, I acknowledge that not only sewing embroidery art, there are a lot more traditional art are endangered in China. So I hope taking the Slow Hands Lab as a platform, engaging more designers with the same vision And using innovative design approach, we could help more artists and craftsmen in saving their livelihoods and protect their unique techniques as a crucial part of our Chinese culture. Thank you, guys. Thank you, DSI.
Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying tonight. It's been really amazing. I'm always impressed when we get to this point, how far the students have come. First off, congratulations to this graduating class. It's been amazing to work with all of you and exciting to have a new generation of social designers in our presence. You're equipped to make real change, and change that looks and feels really different from what's out there right now. As you can probably tell, DSI students take on big problems. These next 5 students are no different. Each wanted to tackle a small issue in the world: immigration, environmental sustainability, online bullying, caregiver stress, and death. Pretty light topics. And the hardest part of the year is telling them that no one thing can fix these complex, dynamic, multi-agenda problems. Students discover that it's about reframing, having a collaborative mindset, and a commitment to prototyping, not for the people that who's going to use your interventions, but with. Remembering that we can help change people's experiences for the better when we truly understand their needs at a human level and allow people to be a part of solving the problem together, which we've seen tonight. Rutvika Gupta's work takes on both macro and micro proportions, bringing democracy into the living room to help immigrant women maintain the right to vote or to work. Rutvika, each week you brought me things that I didn't know about, that I didn't understand, and I never heard of before. You used your heart and your smarts to humanize and bridge an absolutely opaque government process. So well done. You have such talent, and you're going to go so far. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you. Lou Rodrigues, you've asked a question that no one really wants to talk about. How is a young person supposed to cope with the death of a loved one? In fact, Lou, it was not just that one question, but the hundreds of questions you brought to me all year long that helped you unpack this important and deeply personal issue. Never question your creativity, your vulnerability, your strength, and your abilities. You got this. Jisheng Chen's topic emerged out of his personal love of esports and all of the things that happen online, the good, the bad, the ugly. And this topic resonates so sharply with the issues that our society is dealing with today around ethics and safety on the internet. Jason, you will continue to be a great leader in the space, helping make change both on the real world as well as the virtual one. Rachel Cho's thesis tackles the issue of how caring for caregivers can improve outcomes. Not an easy one. Rachel, through your ability to connect with people and your respect for creativity, you offer moms something that they have been missing and sometimes didn't even know they were missing. I look forward to seeing how you meld art, design, and social change together. Pratiksha Rathi, you've taken sustainability from a really unique point of view. You went from sheep farms to shopping malls to the runway, and then you went all the way back upstream to see what the next generation can bring for us. You found a skill that's really easy to forget about when we're looking at these tough social issues, and that is to delight and to play. Bring that to everything you do. I feel so lucky to be your advisor and also to be a part of this cohort. You guys have been incredibly caring and supportive and challenging each other in ways that have really made today shine. Thanks for always listening, pushing back, and always to continue to learn. And Archie, Mari, Jeff, Cheryl, you guys are incredible. It's the core four, and you have shown me so much guidance and friendship and just been there whenever we've needed you. And Chessa, Abigail, and Indiana for making everything run smooth week to week. I'll leave you with a quote from Sarah Hendren, who's a designer and researcher who works in the disability rights and talks about the politics of disability. She talks about socially minded design and says, if you want to make change, you actually have to draw a circle around it and point to it. It's not about representing something in a prettier or nicer way. The social design process gets at the friction, and design does its best work when it's poking on the status quo, when it gets under your skin and lets it live as a question. I'm sure you'll agree that the DSI students know how to do just that. So let's bring them up. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Rutvika, and my year-long journey is called The Independent Project. And today I'd like to start by introducing you to a community I've been working with for the past year. Dependent spouses, who come to this country as the dependents of highly skilled immigrant workers. However, a key restriction they face under their visa is their inability to work or earn any form of income. And so this means they can't do things like get a social security number or open a bank account or even get a driver's license without their spouse being present. This lack of independence really starts taking a toll on their well-being, how they perceive themselves, and how they integrate into society. There are over 1 million dependent spouses in the United States, and most of them are women. Like Neha, who back home in India was a budding TV producer with a master's degree in English. She was truly passionate about her career, but had to give that up in order to join her husband when he got a job in the United States. Neha spent 6 years unable to work, unable to contribute, and unable to prove herself. President Obama recognized how unfair this was and how there was a huge pool of talent and skills that was going to waste. So he liberated Neha and thousands of other women by introducing a work authorization. In just 3 years, more than 100,000 women have received their right to work. Neha became one of the only female TV producers for a South Asian network in the United States. However, and trigger warning, it's a new time, and when the current administration took office, they stated one of their agenda items as revoking this work authorization, saying that it takes away jobs from US workers and it threatens them. And because of this, women like Neha and thousands of others are living each day with huge amounts of fear and anxiety. They are mothers, they are wives, but a huge part of them was taken away when they were reduced to dependent spouses. And now they don't know if they have to go back to that. And so more than that, they feel powerless. As individuals, they don't know what they can do to change their future. So what can be done? Through my research, I found a process that actually helped dependent spouses like Neha get the right to work in the first place. And it's a process most of us don't know about. It's called public commenting. Public commenting is as simple as anyone going to this website, reviewing what the government is proposing, and submitting their informed perspective in the form of a comment. When the government proposes their final rule, they have to summarize each unique comment, which means they have to read it. And so for supporting dependent spouses, participation is truly power. The second thing I found through my research is that the participation of especially citizens, voting, tax-paying members of society would be especially critical, because if they were to come out and tell the government that they support this community and they don't feel threatened by them, it would directly counter the government's argument. However, few people know about this process, and even fewer understand how to engage with it and how it works. So my goals became twofold. How do we give individual dependent spouses the power to feel like they can change their future? And then how do we give citizens the motivation to act and move them to action? And more so, how do we connect the two? That's where Dear Citizens comes in. It's a grassroots initiative that helps individual dependent spouses like Neha activate citizens in her community so that they can take action for her right to work. And it works through the basic premise of leveraging personal networks, where an individual dependent spouse like Neha can invite 2 to 3 citizens in her community that she knows and she trusts. So her coworker, her neighbor, people that know her but don't necessarily know her situation. And she can invite them to her home for an in-person gathering, where through a process of education and exposure, she can start to activate them and prepare them on how to take action for her right to work. And it works by first exposing citizens to the broader system of immigration and what it means to be a dependent spouse in this country through the screening of a documentary film made by a former dependent spouse who is now a filmmaker and an activist. This then sets the stage for an individual host like Neha to share her own story, to tell the citizens what she's scared of and how she feels day to day. And this not only establishes a personal connection for the citizens, but also starts giving them raw material to start constructing their comment in the future. And I'd like to give an example of how this space really started giving Neha the space to be vulnerable and express how she was feeling.
I don't know. I mean, and if this goes on, I don't know how long will I be able to sustain, because I have been fighting so hard for this for many years, and it drains me emotionally, physically. I think I have lost myself in the process in some way, that I'm not the person I used to be. I've definitely evolved. I've become more of a fighter, but I'm fighting with everyone for everything. And that's not how I want to be. I want to feel settled for once. And I want to feel that I can do whatever I can dream of for once. And why not me? You know, why not?
Once that personal connection has been created, Neha can then guide the citizens into action, that is public commenting. She can walk them through what this opaque process is, make it more human and accessible, and also show them why their participation matters by also giving them examples of other issues that are open to public commenting. And then she can take that a layer deeper, because what if building your comment was as easy as building a bowl at Chipotle, where step by step you have a base that defines who you are and why you're commenting. You have key ingredients that really form the basis and the premise of your argument, and then you have your secret sauces. What makes your comment unique and what makes it stand out? The final piece of this gathering is pointing citizens to an advocacy organization, Forward.us. They're building an interactive commenting tool and an interface to collect comments. And so in this way, the host has prepared citizens on everything they need to know to be able to take the next step. And Forward.us gains a pipeline of citizens who may not have known about them before. Here are some things that started emerging through these gatherings.
It feels so ugly that this is...
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I know. When she first told me, I was just so surprised, because I don't think we think of our country like this at all. I mean, I don't know.
No, I know. I don't know. It just makes you feel so sad about your country and what's going on, and because you only ever heard it's the land of opportunity.
That's all I've heard ever.
You've ever heard.
That if you do the right thing, if you have the right paperwork, and if you're hardworking, you'll get what you deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And to know that it isn't that way.
It just seems so like the opportunity that we were all able to get is being, you know, people are trying to cut it off. So I am willing to do stuff, you know, just because it's a way of saying, you know, what kind of country we are. It's so even though these are kind of small gestures, but they do, you know, if enough people take some little action, I think it helps us define ourselves in a better light.
Piloting 6 gatherings, it was very clear that citizens were able to express that this is not okay, this is unfair, and they were able to express their support to this community and to the hosts. They were also extremely excited and inspired to learn a new way to engage with the government and to engage with issues they care about. and these gatherings were a great way for them to learn how to get started. And more than that, other steps of action emerged, such as taking this to a larger forum through neighborhood associations or presenting this at the local library. And so citizens were as invested as the spouses themselves in gaining more attention for this issue and helping them fight for their right to work. And for Neha, this really showed her that she isn't alone in this fight. Citizens are willing to show up and take action for her and stand by her, like Jennifer, who came despite having surgery just the previous day. My question then became, how do we get this to dependent spouses across the country? And that was by collaborating with Meghna, a former filmmaker, by creating a video campaign that not only shows dependent spouses how to host their own gatherings, but hopes to inspire them across the country that they can do this too and that they can mobilize citizens in their community. And this is supplemented by an online platform where anyone can download any of the resources they need to be able to host their own gathering. By collaborating with Meghna and by collaborating with Forward.us, the Independent Project hopes to be a central piece in honoring the efforts of work already being done in the space and hopes to be a piece that can point to their work and amplify what's being done. Because if one dependent spouse can activate even just 2 to 3 citizens in her community, imagine when 100,000 of them have the tools to be able to do so. And ultimately, the Independent Project hopes to be a model for anyone to mobilize their community members for any issue open to public commenting. Because we're at a time where women's rights are being violated, especially women of color. Immigrant rights are being violated. We can use public commenting to tell the Department of Homeland Security that we stand by immigrants. We can tell the Department of Education that student rights matter, but especially student survivor rights. We can use public commenting to tell the State Department that by building the Keystone Pipeline, our water, our land, our native communities, and our generations to come will be impacted. But public commenting only works if we participate, if we use our voices, and if we truly engage. Meghna, at the end of her film, says that life in all its vastness does not define us by our education or our jobs or our salaries, nor does it define us, categorize us as independent or dependent. Instead, time and time again, it reminds us that we are all interdependent. And so at a time where we are interdependent, but certain communities have more power than others, I'd like to leave you with a question that has guided me along my journey. As citizens, how are we using our power? And more so, as citizens, how will we choose to use our power? I could not have done this alone. I'd like to first and foremost thank my family for flying down here just to see me for 10 minutes, but more so, for always giving me the freedom to define my own definition of independence. Cheryl, for creating a program that has allowed me to do the work I've only ever dreamt of. My DSI family, for always being there and showing me what community looks like. Mia, for your ceaseless energy, dedication, mind, and support. To everyone who's given me feedback, input, participated in these prototypes, and more so to all the brave women who have trusted me with their stories and their ideas, Meghna, Sharmi, and Neha, for all the countless phone calls and for trusting me with this opaque, ambiguous process, but being there with me throughout. Thank you.
It's on. Ooh. Hello. My name is Luciana Rodrigues, but everyone calls me Lou, so feel free. I wish I could just leave this slide up here for the whole presentation. This is my dad. He died of liver cancer a year ago, last April. And it's safe to say that losing my father was quite the experience. For me, for my family, none of us were prepared for what was to come, especially in terms of grief. And when I lost my dad,
out of all of my friends, I actually was the only one, except for one other friend that I had, who had lost a parent. So it's safe to say that I actually felt pretty alone in this experience. But I had one friend who, although she hadn't lost a parent, she hadn't gone through the unfortunate experience of losing a mom or losing a dad, she, instead of coming to me and saying the cliche, he's in a better place now, or he's no longer suffering, she went to her friends who had lost their parents and their loved ones, and she asked them, what do I say to Lou? And then she made me a book, and in that book, she beautifully hand-lettered all of the advice and wise words that her friends had told her to pass along to me. Danielle, thank you for this. I carry this notebook around with me everywhere I go. When I miss my dad, I write him notes. This past Father's Day was my first Father's Day without a father, so I wrote him a Father's Day card. But even though I felt alone in this experience, I'm not. 47% of college-age students have experienced a significant loss within the past 24 months. That means that almost half of 18 to 30-year-olds have experienced a significant loss within the past 2 years. And not only is this a significant number, studies further suggest that in the semester in which a loss occurs, one's GPA will significantly drop. Young adults are just naturally social beings. I know this from being a young adult, but also from working with young adults who have lost a loved one for this whole year. We want to relate to those around us. We want to be able to talk to our friends about our experiences, about the things that we're going through, about the sadness that we feel. So when you are the only one in your friend group who's lost a parent, it becomes incredibly difficult to relate to those around you. This is a picture of my friend Elia and her father. Elia is the one friend that I alluded to who was the only one I knew who had lost a parent. She lost her father to lung cancer. She said that she would want to talk about her dad. She loved talking about her dad. She loved talking about the happy memories that she had with her father. But she would find herself not talking about him to make other people around her more comfortable. On the surface, it seems like there are a lot of resources that exist for a young person to be able to tap into when it comes to accessing, support services for their grief. But as I dug more into it, I saw that it was actually difficult for a young person who's already experiencing so many life transitions, and then on top of that, grieving the loss of a parent, to be able to actually access some of these. I did see significant opportunity in the informal support group space. And when I say informal, I mean peer-led, peer-to-peer, social, with a very low barrier to entry. But I kept thinking about these informal spaces, and what about right after the loss? And when I say right after the loss, I mean a couple weeks to about 9 to 10 months after the loss. It still is incredibly difficult for a young person to be able to tap into even these informal support services. So I wanted to make sure that what I created was going to be able to address this very delicate time period in a young person's grieving process. Something else that I kept hearing and that I love to hear was that young people are naturally altruistic beings. We like to help other people. When I was talking to young people and I would ask them, how do you feel most useful? Themes of volunteering and being a shoulder and being a support to your friends, they just kept coming up. It was beautiful, actually. 9 out of 10 young people that I spoke to said that they would never hesitate to be there for a friend who had experienced the loss of a loved one, especially a parent, no matter how hard it was for them to tap back into that pretty sad, terrible memory of their own. This made it important that the intervention that I built was something that was going to be addressing this question right here. How might we use our grief to help others? Because themes of helping others and themes of addressing our grief kept coming up. So it had to be low stakes. It had to be social, because we're social beings.
it had to be practical, and most importantly, it had to be helpful. So I created Friends with Death. Friends with Death is a DIY bookmaking movement geared at young people to be able to take their pain and turn it into purpose and be able to give their grief a sense of usefulness. It's really simple, and I wanted to keep it simple. You take an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, you fold it up, give it a cut, and you fill the pages with whatever you feel fit to fill the pages with. I have a lot of examples of books that have been made in some of the bookmaking pilot workshops that I hosted. I saw a really wide spectrum of things that people would add into these books, from very practical advice, such as get an estate lawyer, to poems and song lyrics and, you know, something that kept coming up was people are going to say really shitty things to you. Here's how you deal with it. You can walk away. A lot of flowers, too. So how the bookmaking pilots worked is that I hosted 3 of them, and I invited young adults who had lost parents or loved ones. I met these young adults in a meetup group here in Manhattan that's specifically geared at young people who've lost a parent, and also in my dinner party. Dinner Party is an organization that exists all over the world for 20 and 30-something-year-olds who have lost somebody to get together, share a meal, and be able to bond over the similar experience. Through these 2 groups, I was able to form connections, and I was able to meet some amazing people that had a lot of amazing things to say and contribute to this. This right here is Tepper. Tepper came to all 3 of my bookmaking pilot workshops. And when I asked him, or actually another participant said, "Why do you keep coming back?" He said that he kept coming back to these things because it sort of forces him to deal with these messy, complicated feelings of grief in a way that doesn't feel like a waste, but more real. I think that this is a testament to how putting your pain into purpose and taking your grief, giving it words, and putting it down into paper can give it a sense of use. Something that I heard from one participant of the meetup group, and it stuck with me, was that she said, "I know that this grief that I feel for losing my mom is going to sit in me forever. I know that, and I'm okay with that, and we should be okay with that. Grief is going to always be a part of us." But what she wasn't okay with was how it felt like a weight, a dead weight, to use her words. And she wishes that she could take that weight and do something with it, use it. So that's why I wanted to create something that made this grief feel useful. More real, as Tepper said. This is actually, I think, Tepper's book. He created so many, and they're all so beautiful. And what these books really are just a vehicle for young adults to begin addressing this grief and this pain. It's not the final step, but it's more so an opportunity to take it and put what they're feeling into words. It's what one participant described as a physical, tangible, "I'm here for you." What I want this to become is a part of the culture for young people who have lost somebody. I don't want it to just stay at books or to just be a bookmaking movement, but I want it to be a movement forward. And what will help facilitate this movement forward is actually this website that I've created, friendswithdeath.com. This website will create an opportunity for young people to go on and download instructions on how to create their own grief books. Further, they can then take these instructions, make their own books on their own time when they're ready to, and then they can upload it onto the website. Because something else that I had heard from these young people was that they really wish that they had an opportunity to be able to share their book with somebody else, but luckily they didn't know somebody immediately who had lost a loved one. But they still wanted to be able to share their books.
So they can upload their books onto this website, and then these books will sit on this website, and other young people from all over the world will be able to then log onto the website and also take a look at books that other young people have created. This is really important because you may not be ready to create a book, and that's okay, but you do still feel alone, and hopefully this addresses that feeling of feeling a little bit alone. I think that our culture, our society, we are not taught how to talk about grief. We're not taught how to talk about loss, and we're not taught how to talk about death. And I hate to stand up here and remind you that death is the only thing that's guaranteed to each and every one of us. But it is. It's the reality of the situation. And if we are able to talk about it a little bit more, and if we're able to become a little bit friendlier with death, I think we're taking the right step forward. Thank you. I also have a lot of thank yous, but the main thank you goes to my dad because I know that he's here right now and I know he's so proud of me. I also really want to thank my mom and my sister because if it weren't for these incredible women, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. I also want to thank Mia and Cheryl, two other incredibly strong women who have guided me and given me so much advice, not only with my thesis, but life advice. I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't be standing right here if it weren't for you two women. And I also really want to thank this amazing cohort. You guys, you're not just a cohort, you're not just classmates, you're family. And I'm never going to forget you guys. I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason. I'm a designer and a gamer. Today, I'm honored here to share with you guys with my thesis project, the known eSportsman. Nowadays, esports is an emerging industry, cultural phenomenon and a rising industry with high-speed growth. However, when we talk about esports, what are we talking about? We are talking about a competitive activity via video games, including mainly these four types. Organized professionally in big stadiums like this, that has over 380 million dedicated fans across the globe. We are also talking about a market with a size estimated over $900 million last year, and a single trophy that was over $25 million. It has become a common consensus within the industry that esports is going mainstream and taking over the next generations of sports, which means my kids will be probably growing up in that environment. However, the more influential esports become, the more worried I get because I know behind the surface of its prosperity, it has severe social problem. And this social problem is not gaming addiction as most often reported, it is gaming toxicity. Gaming toxicity have various spectrums, including but not limited to sexism, racism, trash talk, sarcasm, flaming, and blame shifting. I believe it is a more noticeable social problem to tackle based on two reasons. First, gaming toxicity is dangerous. It is considered a kind of cyberbullying, which is linked to many negative outcomes like mental health issues. It is also one of the main reasons why new gamers leave esports games. So both gamers and game publishers share a common interest in preventing that danger. Second, gaming toxicity is unique because unlike gaming addictions, it is deeply rooted in the mechanics of esports games like its easy in, easy out matching systems. To make things worse, Gaming toxicity can easily infect everyone like a virus. Therefore, we cannot make changes happen if we don't intervene in the gaming environment. In the scale of my thesis, I identified two typical and frequent gaming toxicity: flaming and blame shifting. Flaming means the negative attitude expressed vocally during a game, while blame shifting refers to shifting blame on someone else to avoid responsibility. Both of them are generated through team communication and can be avoided by one-side effort, so change can happen from there. In order to get a more comprehensive understanding, I interviewed with local gamers to understand their experience with esports. The research brought me to these three key insights. First, games are a place where society standards fall away, where players seize fun and freedom they don't have in reality. And games are a highly competitive environment where conflicts around decision-making can happen. Second, lacking education of sportsmanship in the community, players aren't encouraged to communicate with others properly. So they don't really have a basic line when it comes to dealing with conflicts. Third, in real life, aggressive behavior triggers an immediate reaction from victim, a change in facial expression, tone of voice, body language, perhaps even violence. However, in the online world, those deterrents are missing or delayed, which help abusers see their victims as faceless imaginary cutouts who have no feeling and unworthy of empathy. During prototyping, I learned that, first, there are some shared values on esportsmanship among gamers. While gamers have different sets of criteria as to how they represent in actual game behaviors. So, how might I inspire esportsmanship in actual game behaviors? Second, gamers like to accept challenges. Well, they lose this interest in your intervention as soon as they find it boring. So I need to intervene in a way that gamers can accept. So how might I design intervention without losing fun? After several prototypes, I finally get a comfortable form of my intervention. Introducing the Known eSportsman. The Known eSportsman is a social role-play game co-designed with the gaming community that encourages conversation, builds safe boundaries, and cultivates esportsmanship. It is a new way of playing esports game. It is a meta game that directly intervenes team communication, and it can apply to most mainstream esports games because it only requires a role play during the game and a conversation afterward. So, what do I mean by metagame? By metagame, I mean it is a game about the esports game, and that's why I say it's a new way of playing the esports game. Let me explain how it works. So when you normally play an esports game, here are 3 steps how you play it. At first, the matching system will match you with random teammates. Then you enter the game with them and collaborate to win the game. After finishing the game, you leave the game without knowing each other. Perhaps you will report your teammate if you lose, but that's it. By contrast, here's how it works when you play the esports game in the Known eSportsman way. We don't really change the game flow mentioned, but we add another layer on top of it. So before after you match with your teammates, each of you will assign a role by role card. And during the game, you will act it out and play the roles based on whatever the card tells you. And after the game, you will have a conversation and where you discuss about the game, evaluate your teammates' performance, and even vote to identify the roles of each gamers. And so there are actually 3 kinds of cards, and each of them represent different personas, typical personas of gamers. They are griefers who are angry and toxic, eSportsmen who are friendly and brave, and double side who can be either depending on the day. So I wish by exploring the identity of these featured roles and what they mean to them, players can have a meaningful conversation around gaming toxicity and esportsmanship. And they can get to know more about each other by telling which behaviors they appreciate and which they don't, so that the safe boundaries can be built naturally. The game is first co-designed and tested with online Dota 2 community. I designed the initial version of the game, but most of the elements, including the cards, were iterated during the test for the sake of playability and balance. For instance, the rules used to ask players to hide their true identity rather than to win votes by acting it out and telling the truth, which seemed not to encourage conversations, so we changed it. I would say it is iterations like this that define what the game is today. After the co-design session, I soon had a chance to host my game in the real world. I worked with Waypoint Cafe, which provide the space at a regular social event held by Super League Gaming, SLG. The SLG staff kindly gave me the permission to host the game and assisted me in recruiting the volunteers. This time, I implemented the game with the League of Legends community because it is more popular and it is the theme of that social event. The process of hosting the game accurately corresponds to the game flow. First, I explain the rules and send out cards to the volunteers. Then, I watch their gameplay and take notes during the entire games. After they finished the esports game, I facilitated the conversations and held this voting session. According to the feedback, the results are pretty positive. Over the past 2 months, I held game 4 times with 20 testers about 2 different esports games, both online and offline. 60% of the testers said they will recommend the game to their friends. 100% of them get more familiar with their teammates, and 80% of them find the games fun. The result all show that games impact on mind shifting, with 60% of testers changing their opinions on gaming toxicity, and 80% on esportsmanship. I also really appreciate encouraging feedback like this, which convinced me that I'm doing a meaningful thing. And this quote told me that the idea of the game is articulated well, and I felt I'm not alone in developing the known eSportsman game. My thesis is not the end of my journey of tackling gaming toxicity. It is the start. Looking towards the future, I developed 2 scaling strategies for my game to make it more sustainable and accessible. First, I'm making the game open source. A full kit of the game with well-designed cards and clear instructions will be put on open source platform like GitHub, so that it can be played in any events and it can scale in the online world. Second, I'm cooperating with experienced event organizers like SLG to incorporate my game in their events, and it can scale by authorization in the real world. Ultimately, all those efforts are my attempt to searching for the social dynamics, which is rare in the esports games today. However, it was not like that. Games used to be social, and yet people changed after esports games disrupted the gaming field with competitive mechanics. I know we cannot go backward, but we can go forward with the attempt of bringing the social dynamic back in a way like a known eSportsman. And I am committed to cultivate the tradition of sportsmanship in esports. Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Oh, wow. It's different up here. Thank you all for coming. My name is Rachel Cho, and we've been working so hard on our theses that it's really boiled down to this point, and it's really kind of crazy that it's finally happening. But anyways, my name's Rachel. Oh, again. Last year, I started working with a nonprofit organization called a Freebird organization. Their mission is to uplift children battling cancer by empowering them to explore and pursue their dreams of being artists. A Freebird ultimately does this by bringing children one-on-one arts education. And this happens through a series of steps. First, moms learn about a Freebird through hospitals, word of mouth, and social media. And then moms sign their children up with the Freebird organization's programs. And then they take their children to Dream Big events, which consist of performance arts like Broadway to fashion shows and magic shows for children. And then the moms give the organization permission to work with their children, and then moms have to coordinate times for the children's one-on-one tutoring sessions. All of that is really amazing, but what I realized after a couple of months of working with this organization is the moms are doing so much for their children. So when I asked the president's organization's assistant what we do for moms, she answered me saying, as far as I'm concerned, it's a Facebook page that says a Freebird support group. Did you know that there are over 1,000 children under the age of 20 diagnosed with cancer every year in New York City? When a child is diagnosed, the entire family is affected with cancer. There are a number of organizations dedicated to helping children, but what about moms? When children get sick, moms take care of them. But who takes care of moms when they get sick? Who cares for the caregiver? This is Shamiza, and her son on the left is King. King was diagnosed with high-risk leukemia and G6PD enzyme deficiency. One of the things that she told me was, we have a lot of family and friends, but no one that's close by. And the one family that is close by doesn't even call to check in and see how we're doing. Moms don't have a lot of support near them, and so this leads them to have very little time for self-care. Self-care and support is so important for moms. Studies have shown that those with a robust social support network have better health and report higher well-being. Support is a form of self-care, which is good for them to be able to boost their self-esteem, take a break from their routine, and avoid burnout. And in doing all these, in supporting and caring for themselves, they're able to give back more, in this case, moms to other moms. This is Karen and her family. Her son on the left, Elijah, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Again, the one who has to stay home and take care of him is his mother. From the several months of working with moms, I've learned so many things, but a couple of my main takeaways were, moms feel guilty in taking time for themselves, and this is because they're so busy taking care of their children and their families. Second, moms have forgotten how to take care of themselves, and this is because they don't have a lot of support near them, they don't have a lot of help. And lastly, moms want to give back to their communities, but they're lacking the channels to do so. There were two really big areas that emerged from my research: support and self-care, if you couldn't already guess. And actually what's really interesting is through my research process, support and self-care kind of merged together to create a support through self-care program for moms. Overall, I learned that moms are lacking in opportunities to care for themselves. So with their guidance, I created the Offline Social Club. By promoting self-discovery through creative self-care, the Offline Social Club creates guilt-free opportunities for moms of children living with chronic illness to decompress and give back to their communities. These opportunities come in the form of events that happen throughout the city, and they're all specialized in the arts. Arts have been proven beneficial for mental health and self-esteem. And so self-esteem by alleviating stress through distraction. And so arts and social support kind of seem to be the perfect pairing. A Freebird has this program at the organization called Dream Big, like I was saying earlier, where we promote and encourage children to explore the arts. And they do this through a series of steps that help them to explore Broadway shows, go to interactive children's theater, and that kind of thing. So instead of reinventing the wheel, what we were able to do is actually take that program and sort of pivot it and create a new program for parents to direct it towards moms to work with them on their schedules. Through my research, I learned that moms want the option to do things, but they're just lacking in these opportunities. Care for the caregiver doesn't happen overnight. And so what the Offline Social Club does is it offers moms a chance to care for themselves throughout the year, month by month, day by day, week by week. So this is how it works. First, when moms enroll their children into a Freebird, moms too are also connected to their community, the community of support at a Freebird. And in the support group, they are then introduced to the Offline Social Club as a resource to be able to use as a creative self-care exploration guide. Once they are a part of this social club, they receive newsletters, they receive notifications via email, and they get exclusive access to free events and they get free access to the entire resource. They sign up for these events, and they meet other moms, and they attend the events, and then they get to go home, and they feel better and happier, and so they're able to be more present and more productive with their parents or with their families. After my final intervention, I was speaking with Karen's son, Elijah, and he said, when she's home, she just thinks about stuff that makes her sad. But after the events that she has gone to, she seems better and happier. And that makes me feel better because she needs to get out of this house more. While the interactions happen offline, signing up for the events actually happens online because that makes it super easy for moms to sign up anytime and anywhere. The Offline Social Club is an online resource dedicated to bringing moms offline. And actually, when I did a lot of research into support groups, I found that a lot of them were online and there were forum-based discussions revolving around cancer. And even if they did meet up online or offline, they were still conversations based on cancer. And so what the Offline Social Club does is it offers moms a way to explore their creative self-care needs around the city, to have a couple of hours of distraction to be themselves, and they get to join a supportive community and at the same time give back to one another the validation and the community that they have been slowly isolated from their original communities. Oh, I was supposed to play that. So pretty much what the Offline Social Club does is it makes self-care for moms the new way of giving back to others, one caregiver at a time, starting with themselves. There are over 1.5 million caregivers in New York City, and that's a lot of caregivers. And a total New York City population of 8.6 million. If you think about it, 1.5 million caregivers is almost the entire fourth of the population of New York City. Yeah, that's a lot. For those of you who don't know, informal caregiving refers to the help and support that family members and friends give to individuals who are either temporarily or permanently unable to function independently. So by giving these moms a spaces around the city to be themselves, we're giving back a little bit of their independence and autonomy. Through my research, I've come up with 4 valuable insights. And I've learned that my final intervention has to include these 4 needs: validation, community, laughter, and social support. I found that validation and community are the overarching themes of my final intervention because from one of my prototypes, I've learned that moms need validation. They like telling their stories and being validated by sharing their stories with those who may or may not share similar experiences. And in this way, they find the supportive community that they need, a community that understands and empathizes with them. Another need that I found was laughter is really important because it provides the perfect distraction for moms. After one of the events, which was a paint night for moms, Cynthia, one of the mothers that I was working with this term, was telling me after the event, I felt relaxed and had a happy heart. By working directly with moms through the process, I was able to learn and we were able to create something that worked for them on their own terms. I created so many interventions and so many prototypes, but ultimately I learned that moms knew best, and so I had to create something with them to finally give them something that they can do on their own time, on their own terms. After the intervention, moms were sharing on their Facebook page, a Freebird was sharing on their Instagram and their social media about how these events address their needs. And by moms sharing directly onto their social media and directly to their followers and friends, they're able to give back a little bit of hope to these people, and they're able to spread the awareness that much faster. The Offline Social Club is actually being implemented at a Freebird right now, and it allows moms to take a break from routine, get out of their usual environments, have a good laugh, and grow new and old relationships that they had and can build new ones. So moving forward, what I want to do with the Offline Social Clubs, I want to continue working with it to grow it to the point where I can partner with other organizations as well and help other moms, other informal caregivers in the city. This is one of the moms. She told me I would usually shy away from stuff like this on the camera, like selfies and stuff like that, but the energy I get is amazing. So we may be small, we're starting off small, but I think it's amazing to see that we're able to make a difference in moms' lives, one life at a time, one event at a time, and one organization at a time. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna do a couple of thank yous. I just wanna thank my family for flying all the way out here, just like Rufi said, for like 10 minutes. Thank you so much, my sister. She was always there packing me breakfast when I was running out the door. Mia for constantly pushing and really just pushing really hard. She is a tough one, but she's really good. And my DSI cohort for teaching me every single day when I was there, learning from them. I don't talk much in class, but they talk a lot. And you can learn a lot through people who talk a lot. So thank you everyone for being here, and woo!
Hi, I'm Pratiksha. I belong to India, a country rich of traditions. So there is a tradition in my family. Grandmothers used to make clothing for us. But over the period of time, it changed. And I started buying clothes from these brands which started appearing in India. And they stopped making clothes. When I came here, I realized that was not the case only in India. It was all around the world. My story is about clothing. It's about clothes we wear, people who design them, and the impact this industry is having on our world today. You all might be familiar with these advertisements. We buy clothing for every occasion, every season, because clothes are cheap, easy, and fast. Clothes are easy, cheap, and fast, and this trend is known as fast fashion. The amount of clothing discarded from US is 10.5 million tons annually. That equals to the weight of 3 Empire State Buildings. Most of this clothing is made of synthetic material, like polyester and nylon. People try to do good things like donating clothing they don't want. But do they know where these donations go? Most of the clothing is shipped to the third world countries and sold in their market. Clothes that are not sold are burned or end up into the landfill. These countries have received so much of discards that they've proposed a ban on discarded clothing. This made me think, why do we buy so much of fast fashion? Because it is available in the market, right? So this guided my research to why clothing is manufactured in such a way or designed in such a way that they cannot be decomposed. A life cycle of a product or a clothing depends on a designer. And guess what? I learned that in US, 51,000 students graduate from fashion colleges, and only 3 colleges have full-time sustainability program, which means most of the students and young designers are not equipped with formal fashion education, fashion sustainability education. So I saw an opportunity for students even before they join colleges, so that and begin their career. Having worked with high school teenagers before, and through my research, I learned if teenagers are introduced to a problem, they try to solve it and reduce it. So I set out to design a program for high school teenagers to teach them about fashion sustainability even before they join colleges and begin their career. Introducing reFashion, because I believe mindful creation leads to mindful consumption. So like every program is designed, I started by designing a curriculum based on 2 principles, awareness and action, because awareness changes behavior and attitude, and that leads to action. To test it out, I collaborated with Stern King School and Beacon High School in upstate New York. So what I learned was when I introduced students to fast fashion, they didn't know that it really exists. Students are sometimes unaware of sustainable practices like sourcing natural materials like cotton, wool, and silk. And guess what this blouse is made of? It is made of oranges. So like this, there are plenty of natural resources like corn, milk, soya, hemp, banana, through which materials can be made. Introducing students to these kind of materials and researchers help them to inspire interest in material science. So for the final product, students had to create their own sustainable clothing. Emily, in the picture, started sourcing material from the clothing donations she found at the school. And for the final presentation, students from Stern King School and Beacon High School came together and presented in an exhibition setting. the 6-week curriculum, students felt hopeful. Gloria, who's posing in the picture, she looks angry, but she felt hopeful that she could change the way a future fashion is designed. And students wanted to promote fashion sustainability at their campus, so they made a video.
I am building a program called reFashion. It is an educational program which teaches fashion students sustainable design practices at a younger age. Since I collaborated with Stun King, they've participated in every single prototype I've tried and year with them, and we co-created this curriculum together initially, and then I built it out more. I think they are a little more aware of fast fashion, what fast fashion is, and fast fashion exists.
So students wanted to participate in this program, but 6 weeks was a long time. Students are busy in their pre-commitments. So I wanted to make this program approachable to as many students as I could and fit into their overpacked curriculum. As an extension of reFashion, I created reFashion Pop-Up School. It is an experiential social space that aims to create fast fashion awareness and teaches them about sustainability in a couple of hours. Students learn how to repurpose and recreate a new garment. So I tested this out with 15 participants in total at Storm King. John was one of the participants. He did not know the importance of making something. He says with this experience, now he can at least fix his clothing and reduce fashion waste. For the Earth Day, students created something that could be made or worn by themselves. And they made promise that I will buy less fast fashion and I will use eco-friendly material to design the clothing in the future. So as I move forward, I want to create more experiences and teach students about fashion sustainability. I want to create a generation of mindful creators that lead to mindful consumers. And I strongly believe that sustainability should be integrated in the curriculum even before they begin their career, before they join colleges and begin their career. I focused on fashion, but there are many problems. And as designers, we are problem solvers. We can create a generation of thinkers. And finally, I want to leave you behind. Buy clothing mindfully. Let us all create a hand-me-down culture and fix our clothing. Keep refashioning. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. 3 more left, so hold on tight. They're very exciting. My name is Mari Nakano. I am a thesis advisor, a very proud one. And I just wanted to give a little quick thing before they come up on stage, but I just wanted to say in my scribble here, I've edited this over the course of the afternoon. So in a society where becoming a parent can throw one's ambitions to move into or remain in positions of leadership or even stay employed, in a society where complex government systems have yet to build in more modern, transparent ways to let constituents' voices be heard, and in a society where we live, or where we still have a ways to go in shaping our cities to truly be more equitable and accessible, well, I'd say that the next group that's going to come up here dared to take on those projects to chip away, or maybe rather sledgehammer away at these issues. It was a real honor to work closely with our next group of students on sometimes very personal issues, and together to understand and surface opportunities to do things like find more concrete ways for companies to support parents, as you'll see in Catalina and Taylor's work, to really carve out new and easier avenues for residents to channel their needs through community advocates, as you'll see in Zoe and Jelynne's project. And in Jessica's work, we're provoked to think about how to build more accessible spaces for those who've experienced trauma. As a design practitioner dedicated to the social impact space, but maybe more importantly as a woman and as a mom, you all reminded me that empowered women like yourselves can empower women and those who touch those women's and who are connected to those women. I think Taylor and Catalina, if I ever start my own company, you'll be the first that I'll call to ensure that I build a company where people know that we support families deeply. Jelynne and Zoe, there you are. You remind me of my roots as an activist, and to not forget how important it is to design for those on the front line. And for Jessica, I can't see where you are. Oh, raise your hand. I learned so much from you. You were my teacher, I think. And I really sincerely admire your drive and your drive to represent the PTS community. You sensitized me, and you made me critique my own consciousness and my work. Y'all, I really am not easily satisfied, but I have to say that you all just really inspired me and surprised me. You made me really excited to be a teacher, to give, and you really just gave me a lot of hope that there's just good people in the world that want to do good work for those out there. But most importantly, I think, I was not only impressed by the work you did in this institution, I think I was also impressed for what you are able to do outside of here too. As you all seen, and that you will see, design is something incredibly powerful, and it's a way to uncover specific challenges faced by everyday people. It not only convinces us of what and how sometimes, how something can be solved, but it's also really beautiful to see so many of these students expressing a commitment to carry on these endeavors after today. I think that these designs and the projects that you see will excite us and will provoke us, and most importantly, just help us think differently about the world around us. So I just wanted to end with a thank you because of what you taught me and just for letting me have the privilege to go through this year with all of you. With that, let's bring up our first or third to last team, Catalina and Taylor.
51% of the workforce today are women, and we're a part of that. We both worked during our time at DSI.
I'm Catalina, and I was a social worker in workforce development.
And I'm Taylor, and I work for a social enterprise focused on reducing bias in the workplace. We formed our partnership wanting to address this issue: why in 2019 there are still significantly fewer women in leadership positions than men, and we wanted to understand why. So we spoke to over 100 women throughout our process, and a common theme began to emerge. Here's what they were saying.
Having a child has completely changed my career.
Men don't have to have that same calculus. How do I pause from my career?
I don't think I had any time. Mila was born, and then I think 2 weeks, I went back to teaching.
The day
I was a wreck. Having to like pump on the first day was really awkward, like trying to figure out like what conference room to go to.
I think the biggest challenging part was like just getting used to daycare. The first month, I kid you not, I think she was sick like 12 times. And here I am with like my new job and having to like leave.
The biggest challenge I have is the feeling that you have to do it all.
I would have this pit in my stomach every night because I wanted to be mom. But then I wanted to make sure I had enough sleep so I could be my employee during the day. And it was just this constant battle.
I think it really does depend on like the culture and like the company, how flexible they are.
My boss said, you having a kid is gonna limit your work here. That's why I was like, no, I'm definitely leaving. For all of these women, a pivotal moment in their career was when they had children. And at the same time, at some point, they chose to leave their careers to find a more parent-friendly company. And we realized this was more common than we thought. 43% of women scale back at work or leave their jobs after having a child. And that costs a huge cost for companies. Losing an executive employee costs a company up to 213% of their annual salary. So if a woman makes $100,000 a year, the cost to replace her is $213,000. A clear problem emerged. Workplaces aren't designed to meet the needs of working moms, which affects their opportunities for leadership positions. But within this problem, we found an opportunity. It's not that companies don't want to support working moms, it's that they don't know where to start. Companies like Microsoft and Patagonia are paving the way in parent-friendly practices, but it's often more challenging for companies with fewer resources and a limited budget. So that's when we thought, how can we support companies so that they can better support working parents? And this is what we learned. Working moms need an approachable way to communicate their needs to their employer. It's really uncomfortable having personal conversations with a boss, especially when they have to keep happening over and over. Working moms want companies to consider the needs of all working parents. Single dads, same-sex couples, and really all parents have similar experiences. So that's when we realized that this isn't just a mom's issue, it's a parent issue. And companies need data to make informed decisions on how to better support working parents. Companies are thinking about ROI and their bottom line, and so data is a unique entry point for company buy-in and to make the case for why this matters.
This is where Returnity comes in. Returnity is a data-driven service that includes an evaluation of current policies combined with employee feedback to provide a customized roadmap for building a parent-friendly workplace. So, why data-driven? Data can facilitate these difficult conversations to reduce the burden on working parents and enable change on a larger scale. Why an evaluation of current policies combined with employee feedback? We found that company evaluations such as B-Labs already exist. However, they're only completed by leadership members. And then there's also employee satisfaction surveys, but often the results aren't shared with employees. We felt like what was missing here was something that combined these two perspectives. And finally, why a customized roadmap? Simply providing companies with data doesn't mean that they can take action. By providing customized next steps, small and large companies can do what makes sense for them based on their budget and resources. So, how does it work? First, Returnity partners with a company, and someone from their HR team or leadership team completes the employer profile to evaluate current policies and benefits for working parents. At the same time, working parents complete the employee profile to evaluate their workplace culture and how they actually feel within a company. Once this is complete, we analyze all the data and create a report, and then facilitate a debrief session to discuss our recommendations. Returnity's goal is to open up conversations so that companies take action towards becoming more parent-friendly. To create Returnity, our first step was to define what a parent-friendly workplace looks like. With a group of working parents and HR professionals, we developed these 8 categories, which include things like schedule flexibility, lactation support, and childcare benefits. This laid the foundation for our evaluation. Together, we then created these 2 profiles, which each have 25 questions and are out of 50 points. These were built on a digital platform, and even the language and design were co-created by our community so we could create a corporate solution without a corporate feel. And finally, we designed the 8-page report that visualizes a company's parent friendliness. This includes their overall score, an analysis of workplace culture, the gap in support, and next steps.
Companies were really excited about Returnity. We piloted with 4 companies and had a total of 51 participants and had a really high completion rate of 92%. The data showed that there was a lot of room for improvement. The 4 company scores ranged between 41 to 59 out of 100, and the top 2 areas for companies to prioritize were inclusivity and childcare and education. A learning that one company didn't expect was that 77% of their employees wanted a network for working parents. That was an easy, low-cost solution that they could quickly implement. And for another company, they scored really low in lactation support, but we realized that was because the majority of them were parents that had older children, and so it made sense. They didn't need that. And so some of their recommendations included focusing on schedule flexibility and child education benefits. But beyond the hard data, Returnity had real outcomes for companies. Initially, we asked companies to test with 10 working parents, but we had an overwhelming response from HR professionals that they wanted all their employees to fill this out. And just by participating in Returnity, working parents said they felt more supported. At the same time, we saw that companies were building awareness of what it means to be parent-friendly, and they were placing higher priority on supporting parents. And sharing this data created conversations between the working parents and HR professionals that they said would not have happened otherwise. And we saw that many companies were actually planning follow-up meetings to implement some of these changes. One company's next step was to take inventory of the lactation spaces across their offices. And seeing companies take action to become more parent-friendly is exactly what we intended for Returnity to do. And we loved what one male HR professional said. I actually think that supporting working parents will make us support all our employees better and strengthen our company in the long run.
But this is just the beginning. Our ultimate goal is for leadership teams to begin to look like this, and we have a lot of ideas for how Returnity could make this happen. As more companies get involved and we have more data, we could start to show how becoming parent-friendly actually increases opportunities for women in leadership. Our hope is that this could start a movement of companies that are leading the way and thinking about the future of work, how families are changing, and how this impacts women. We have so many people to thank for helping us get here. Since neither of us are moms, we are really grateful that we are able to work with an incredible group of working moms who are with us throughout this journey. We're especially thankful to Mari for your support as our thesis advisor and as a mom. And finally, we have to thank our moms for showing us that women can have both a family and a career. None of this would have been possible without you. We want to leave you with this quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg where she said, "Women will have achieved true equality when men share with them the responsibility of bringing up the next generation." And we believe Returnity will help us get there. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks to our chair, Cheryl Heller, our thesis advisors, Mari Nakano, and Archie Lee Coates IV, and our cohort class of 2019. A special thank you to Karen Proctor, our family, In our community in Jersey City, Michelle Massey, Sharon Felton, Barbara Camacho, and the many grassroots activists working on the ground. We're Jelynne and Zoe, and we will take you on our journey in creating our social intervention called From the Block. You're here at the moment, but for 10 minutes, we are going to take you across the Hudson River to a city that I grew up in. My family settled here in the 1980s from the Philippines. And by looking at how close Jersey City is to Lady Liberty and Ellis Island, you can imagine that we followed a long tradition of cultural migration to this part of the world. This tradition, we're happy to report, is still a reality today. Jersey City was named the most culturally diverse city in the entire United States in 2019 by WalletHub.com. But a closer look at its socioeconomic diversity tells a different forecast. The areas highlighted in darker blue in the lower part of this income map shows the concentration of higher income residents in downtown Jersey City. This income group is making over $100,000 annually. Downtown is saturated with high-rise residential and office towers. This redevelopment began decades ago, with a sharp uptick in the last 6 years. This increase came at a cost. Black and brown communities did not share in the economic revitalization. This conclusion came from the disparity study, also called the Croson study. And it took 10 years to complete by 2011, just as a new wave of redevelopment hit the downtown area. 2 administrations did nothing to correct the disparity, and today the original 10-year study is going to be studied again under a smaller scope. This is the community that stood to gain the most by correcting the disparity. It's the Jackson Hill district in Jersey City. It's predominantly African American and Latinx on the cusp of redevelopment.
Welcome to Jackson Hill, home to locally owned businesses, generations of families, and American history. But there's also a growing issue. There's also a list of growing issues. One of the concerns we found in the area is parking. Something even as mundane to city life as a no parking sign will be the focus of our case study on displacement and the negative impact of top-down policy. The first thing we did was ask residents about their experience with parking. This person was displaced due to increased ticketing. Unsafe conditions. Unsafe conditions are surfacing as people are desperate to find a parking spot. And this person was unable to pay for a ticket online and had to see a judge. He took the day off of work just to pay for a simple parking ticket. The citizens don't know why this has become a problem overnight, but this lack of information, combined with decades of inaction by the city, is causing mistrust. Last year, Jersey City adopted a Vision Zero policy for safer streets. Its goal is to have less cars on the road and zero traffic fatalities by 2026. But it also added punitive measures like increasing the cost of fines and 24-hour ticketing. The residents we spoke to had never heard of this policy, but were feeling the effects. As social designers, we set out to get clear on the impact of city policies and asked ourselves this: when government plans for safety and sustainability, what gets lost? Meet Michelle Massey. She's a native of Jersey City, an advocate for the district she lives in. She's the director of the Jackson Hill Improvement District, and she knows firsthand how these measures are affecting people who work and live there. Michelle said, "To advocate, I need the knowledge from residents. You have consultants assessing that don't know the neighborhood or the backstory. Jersey City is constantly bringing in new people, not from the city, in positions to make decisions. Michelle's role is as a community liaison, and because she spends most of her time communicating between the community and the city, she needs a formalized way to collect data unique to her community.
So we created From the Block, a civic engagement tool to support activists in elevating local knowledge to shape city policy. We intended for the community to inform our design. So we began with Sharon. She's a resident and a retired school teacher on a fixed income. Last year, she paid $400 in tickets. She's also an activist and the president of her block association. And so we wanted to better understand their daily living and use mapping to visualize it. Common themes for needing a car emerged, such as caretaking for loved ones and lack of access to fresh produce. They also use their car for safety. The areas circled in red are spots with high occurrences of shootings at any time of the day. This led us to ask the community to define what safety means for them. They define safety as a walkable neighborhood. In fact, this is where citizens of Jackson Hill and the Jersey City government have a shared goal, to have a walkable city. But the government misunderstood the community's definition of safety and jumped to conclusions by promoting less cars when residents use their cars to avoid street violence. This missed opportunity to create a shared baseline definition of safety is coming at a cost. Vision Zero is increasing ticketing for citizens, which is bringing about economic loss and inequity for this lower income community. In 2016, Jersey City collected $14 million in parking tickets, mostly from no parking signs, and now stands to make even more.
Community lived experience is getting lost in city policy. Michelle is aligned with community needs and wants to create a parking plan for residents. With this shared goal, From the Block is connecting citizens to city government with Michelle as the liaison. It uses digital mapping as well as Google surveys to capture data from activists in her neighborhood. Michelle likes mapping because information gets lost and people sometimes cannot perceive a problem with just words. In April, Sharon held her block association meeting, and when talking about parking problems, one of her members shared this observation. They lose spots, also by inefficient parking. So Sharon chalked her street and measured on average losing 3 spots to inefficiency. Before From the Block, it would be unclear how to share this community-informed solution. But now, from her stoop, with her iPad, Sharon can share it directly to Michelle using From the Block. Michelle sees the possibility and says, "This goes beyond parking and displacement. We could engage the community in ways outside of a public meeting. I want to share this with the councilman." From the Block took a data point from a resident and channeled it straight to Michelle, who then is able to use her connection to the councilman.
It fosters communication exchange. It could start with city planning or policy to be shared by Michelle, and using From the Block, she can quickly educate her district about new policy that might otherwise remain invisible but impactful. Most of all, she can ask important questions to collect data, and all of this combined could shorten the time that it takes for Michelle to advocate back to the city. It creates a new reciprocal line of data exchange and makes space for residents to participate outside of City Hall meetings. From the Block also visualizes this data through digital mapping. This map is an example of how residents are leaving Jersey City to buy fresh produce and groceries. This goes beyond Sharon and scales out to other activists and the residents that they advocate for. You may have noticed that Sharon always had an iPad with her. Sharon is digitally connected, and so are her peers. And it's through them that vulnerable residents who have no internet access are able to share and receive information about policies impacting their neighborhood. We focused on one relationship, but social capital is an asset that Jackson Hill has in abundance, as we saw in the value they place on caretaking. From the Block took a community strength and elevated it. Through our work, we've seen how even something as small as parking can be disruptive. Building these relationships that has created community resilience takes time. And this is what's at stake. This is what's lost when people are displaced.
We believe that co-creating shared baseline definitions makes government more effective and connected with community. Through our work, we've been seeing the inequity left in the wake of top-down policy. Human equity is when outcomes are not predictable based on someone's identity or characteristics. Since the start of this project, we've been hearing how there is nothing that can be done to stop displacement in the context of gentrification. We believe this doesn't have to be the case, nor should it be predictable.
Thank you.
This one work? Okay. It was just over 6 years ago that I was standing in line at a police station. I wore a hoodie that covered freshly scabbed arms and sunglasses that hid 2 black eyes. The shock was slowly wearing off as I was trying to make sense of the last 12 hours. Among the rage, regret, and shame that I felt was luck. I was lucky to be alive. I looked around to see who else was waiting, and I noticed that we were all women. We wore bruises on different parts of our bodies, and these bruises carried stories. One by one, we each went in seeking justice, and one by one, we left feeling hopeless, unheard, and invalidated. In the United States, 70% of adults will have at least one traumatic experience in their lifetime. And of this, 8% will have post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD at any given point in time. I am Jessica, and I am a part of this group. I have PTSD. Over the years, I came to realize that I had different reactions to places and people than I did prior to my near kidnapping. I avoided being the only person on the block. I wouldn't go places that restricted my movement. And I lived in a constant state of hypervigilance, always on the lookout for danger. And then I joined a PTSD support group, and I learned about the challenges that other members of this group faced. Some of them were similar to mine, and others were very different. But over time, what I came to realize was that women did not show up like men did, and sometimes they didn't show up at all. Contrary to the widely held belief that male veterans make up the largest percentage of those with PTSD, it is actually civilian women. In fact,
Women are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop PTSD than men are. We are also more likely to experience major depression and anxiety, and we are at a higher risk of being socially isolated. So I sought out to create a co-design group with the women from my support group. I wanted to understand if meetings were held in a private space without men, if they would show up, and they did. This was a place for us to come together and be heard among other women who had similar experiences. And we had a lot to say. We often talked about how our environments made us feel triggered. And the fear of being triggered often kept us even from leaving our own homes or the places that we trusted. Ultimately, this affected the group, and although the women said that they thought the group was great and they really enjoyed being a part of it, getting there was very difficult for them. And eventually they stopped coming. So the issue here was about accessibility. Accessible design is the design process in which the needs of those with disabilities are specifically considered. And a disability, as defined by the ADA, is a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. While the ADA includes mental impairment in their definition of disability, most of their standards set out to design for physical accessibility. At the thought of disability, we often picture what we've seen: wheelchairs, walking sticks, guide dogs, and handicap parking spots. But what about the things that we cannot see? There are people here with disabilities too, but they're invisible. As you could probably tell, this is Grand Central Station, which a scene like this might seem normal to most, but with its large crowds, loud and unpredictable sounds, and with nowhere to really escape to in all of this, it becomes a place to avoid for many trauma survivors. We'll talk about the Port Authority bus terminal another day. As Liz Jackson says, we are not disabled by our bodies, but by the world around us. By designing for accessibility rather than designing with accessibility, we leave out the voices of our most important stakeholder. Nobody knows the needs of trauma survivors better than trauma survivors. And then the next experts in line are those who trauma survivors are in close contact with, who you see fall at the top of this. And then on the bottom half are the people who are not necessarily within a trauma survivors network, nor do we really consider them to be trauma experts. But when you look at this in terms of influence, you notice something quite different. We design cities and spaces without the voices of trauma survivors, and therefore it doesn't meet our needs. But within this gap exists an opportunity to bring together voice and power to create this change. And so we decided to work with business owners because they are accessible, influential, and they can bring about the most immediate change to the spaces that they provide. So from the co-design sessions, I learned that a way to increase participation was to continue this online. And participation did increase by doing that. And the women who are a part of this, like, they really want to be part of it. It's just about making sure that it's within reach so that they can. So moving forward, our goal was to encourage small businesses to improve their spaces to accommodate the needs of women with a history of trauma. And now I would like to introduce to you Restore. Restore is an initiative that brings together trauma survivors, business owners, and clients to co-create spaces that are trauma sensitive. Restore is based on 5 principles developed by trauma survivors, and these have been time and time again regarded as the most crucial. So here's what we've defined. Spaces should be safe and comfortable for everybody in them. Visitors of a space should be empowered as decision makers. There should be a strong presence of nature within the space. Nothing within the space should be over nor under-stimulating to all of the senses. And the space should foster an environment where everybody feels included. So as I said, the group that I've been working with, the co-design group, we developed these principles, and from these principles, we've also developed an assessment for businesses to take. So when the business is interested in taking this assessment, they will share it out with their clients. Their clients will assess them. A report will be generated along with a grade. And then the business will make a commitment to change. The commitment to change is a promise from a business to their community that they will be making modifications to their space based on the feedback that they've received. And then finally, they implement those changes to the space. After those changes have been implemented, the business can then be reevaluated and regraded. So I had 3 partners through this project. And as you noticed, they're all yoga studios. The reason I wasn't really seeking out yoga studios in the beginning, but they were the most eager to participate because they already cater many of their services to trauma survivors. So moving forward, I will explain this process with Kula Yoga Project. So when the director of Kula Yoga, Nikki, expressed interest, I sent her an email template, posters, and exit slips to share the assessment with her clients. They took this assessment, which could be taken on a smartphone or a laptop. It didn't take more than 15 minutes usually. And then it was based on the 5 categories, which are based on each of the principles, with a 6th category of just information about them. And these generated a letter grade. These letter grades are kind of similar to what we see in like restaurant grades, where an A would mean that the business has been exemplary, B, accomplished, C, emerging, and F, inadequate. So Kula Yoga's overall grade, which is an average of all of the categories, was an A, and they got straight A's in every category except for inclusivity, which they received a B. What was really interesting about this was that 70% of the clients who took this assessment identified as experiencing prolonged symptoms related to trauma themselves. So some of the feedback that the clients gave was about language being used in the space, especially by staff and instructors, that they felt was insensitive to their gender expression and their race. And so I interviewed Nikki about the report, and there were some learnings for her. She said that moving forward, what they should be doing is addressing the biases and practices among the instructors that they have and the staff, so that they can be more inclusive to their clients. And her plan with this is to have more teacher trainings for these instructors to do that. So this was just one business's assessment that I shared with you, or evaluation, but there is a greater vision for this. Restore can be something much greater when more businesses and different kinds of businesses, like cafes or co-working spaces or other venues are participating in this. And whether it's on the map or on the street, trauma survivors can navigate their environment with more ease and find the places that meet their needs. So, next time you're in a cafe or shop or even your workplace, think about how it is or how it could be trauma sensitive. If you're curious what somebody needs, just ask. And help us grow this conversation so that the city and one day this world can be trauma sensitive. Thank you.
And that is almost the show. I want to thank every member of our cohort for making it look so easy and for making it look so right-minded to not only see injustices, but use all of your talent and energy to do something about it. I want to thank our team, Irene, who had the impossible job of filling in for Chessa on maternity leave, Abigail and Indiana, who just got here and hit the ground running and took over managing getting us to the end of the semester, and Chessa, who worked literally up until a couple of hours before she delivered her baby, writing instructions for everyone to get through it. We have a tradition that we end the thesis show with that will close, but I wanted to end this thesis show with a couple of new beginnings. First of all, to the cohort, to wish you Godspeed in your future and all the amazing things I know you're going to do. And second, by introducing the new chair of the program, Mia Osaki, who's been a beloved faculty member and who has dedicated herself to the program and the students and is a leader in design research and passionate about everything she needs to be passionate about to lead this program. So Mia, I'd like to invite you up.
Thank you, everyone. I know we're running very late, so I'll do this very quickly. But while this marks the end of the year of a lot of hard work, it's just the beginning of so many new journeys and stories. I'd like to honor the vision and the wisdom of Cheryl Heller, who has paved the way for design to do so much more. Cheryl, you have inspired and impacted so many people's lives, including me. Anybody who knows you and meets you will never be the same after. You have created a precedence for social design and a place for us to learn and shape its future. You will always be our leader. We love you so dearly, and you will always have a place at DSI. We hope you come back. We wish you all the best, Cheryl, and we will miss you greatly beyond words. My goal is to carry on the spirit of DSI that Cheryl has started, to continue a discourse where we can question and inspire and challenge each other to make positive change in the world, to design and disrupt and transform in a way that is both measurable and meaningful. On behalf of the faculty, staff, and students, we'd like to thank Cheryl for her amazing contributions and just making an experience that is like no other. So, without further ado, there's a tradition at DSI of the first-year students honoring the graduating class with a film. So we'll start there.
You're on.
Sorry.
Everything's bananas.
Hi, Kat. From Skyping with you when I was in Istanbul to watching you graduate today, it's been really special to watch you be fearless in all areas of your life. I'm so proud of you, and I know that you're going to kill it in everything that you do. Mabruk wala Quebec.
Happy graduation! 恭喜你毕业啦！恭喜你毕业啦！祝你早日找到工作，祝你早日发财，祝你早日找到女朋友，祝你早日结婚，祝你早生贵子，早点退休。耶！
Hi, Corinne. I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me in the beginning of this journey, and I want to wish you the best of luck in all your endeavors, and make sure to treat yourself afterwards. Bye.
Congratulations. 恭喜学姐毕业，祝学姐在未来工作顺利，在追寻梦想道路上一往无前，每天都有好心情。
Congratulations! Oh my God! Umila, congratulations! You're so wonderful. You're the kindest, most generous, most modest human being I've ever met. Thank you so much for always being so encouraging and connecting me to so many people for my thesis and internship. I love you so much. And thank you for investing so much time and energy in my thesis along with yours. And miss you. We love you.
Hi Danny, congrats on all your achievements, graduation, and badass thesis. Thanks for always being a source of inspiration as we work to combat climate change. Our planet needs more people like you. Can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Hi, Jiayi. Congratulations! And thank you for helping me when I first come in DSI. I wish you have happier life every day. Yay!
Congratulations, Zoe. It's been so cool hearing about your adventures from Boston to New York. Best of luck and rock it.
Lu, you have accomplished so much over the last 2 years. I want to leave you with one of my favorite original quotes. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. With Gretzky, Michael Scott, Dora Show. Hi, Jason. 恭喜你毕业. Congratulations for your graduation. And you've worked very hard to achieve your goals. And now there is the time for you to seek a new adventure, dream new dreams, and keep reaching for your star. Just go for it. 加油!
Hey Rachel, this is Grace, your mentee. I can't believe it's been almost a year since we met, and it was just an honor meeting you on the first day. You're Korean, I'm Korean, we Koreans, you know, we just gotta get together sometimes. But as a designer, hearing from a designer's perspective on how DSI would work out, and just chilling with you sometimes and just talking to you was really, really inspiring, and it really means a lot to me because it was really helpful. Getting those little tips, you know, on the way, whether it's life, design, boys, and so that was really fun. And I really hope for the best of your career and your future, and I know you'll rock it because you're so cool. So yeah, sincerely great.
Congratulations on this incredible achievement, Jelynne. Your hard work has really been so inspiring to me, especially just seeing your dedication to doing work specifically with thesis that really aligns with your values and put community first. And I guess I just wanted to say thank you for really being so kind and for sitting in all those nights and probably me derailing you and Zoe from thesis, but hearing all of your advice and our laughter and conversation. But I wish you the best of luck wherever you may go next. You're gonna kill it.
Hey Pratiksha, just want to thank you for being a wonderful friend and being so accessible and easy to talk to. It's great having someone from your culture when you move to a new city, a new country, and thanks for always being there, and I wish you all the best for your future.
Wenqi, your kick-ass mentor.
And you did a badass job on your thesis.
And now you can go home.
Hi, Yuwen. I love you funny English, and I believe you will be the best art teacher in the future.
嗨，语文学姐，恭喜你顺利毕业，希望你以后就保持你的傻笑就好了。
Congratulations!
Congratulations! So this message is for Danielle Hernandez, my mentor. I just want to say thank you, and I'm so proud of you and the work that you did with your thesis. Thank you for the work that you've done to honor people of color and their legacies. So I'm so excited for whatever's next in your journey. So definitely stay in touch.
Guys, I'm killing it.
Congratulations, Taylor. You did it. I wish you the best of luck and all the success.
Hey, Zach. Congratulations on graduating. I admire your passion and your energy, and I can't wait to see what you do next. And thanks for being my mentor. Congrats.
Hey, Sharon. Congratulations. Please accept my best wishes for your bright futures and happy life.
Mary Beth, thank you for being my mentor, and thank you for helping me feel at home in this space, even before it felt like home. And I really want to congratulate you and wish you so much luck in the future. Based on your hard work, you're not going to really need luck. And I also want to thank you for sharing your research documents with me and teaching me how to properly store all the research that's coming next year. Congratulations.
Hi, Jessica. It's been so great knowing you, and you definitely be missed. Thank you so much for all the support you have given me. DSI wouldn't have been the same without you. I am also really excited to see how camaraderie grows, and I am super proud of you.
恭喜完成毕设啊！不知道实习找的怎么样，但是我相信你的能力绝对没有问题的。然后我知道我们一直说要约垃圾食品，但是这些没有约上，所以怎么样？毕业之前要不要来约一波呀？
Congratulate the class of 2019.
It's been an honor knowing all of you.
Wish you the best and brightest future.
Congratulations!
Hi everyone, Vera and I want to send a big congratulations to you all for 2 years of your hard work paying off. We're excited to see where you go, and I'm so proud that I could have been a part of your journey. Please keep in touch.
Congratulations, class of 2019. I love you, I'll miss you, and I can't wait to see what you do in the world. So, mwah.
Hey, do you guys have a moment to talk about the metric system? That's okay. That's okay. Have a moment to talk about the metric. Okay. A moment to talk about the metric system?
Unfortunately, we don't.
That's okay. Okay, bye.
So thank you all for coming. Congratulations. A big round of applause for the class of 2019.